Hello and welcome back to Salmon's Pizzeria. We are back for the League Cup roundup, as there are no Championship or Premiership fixtures for me to talk about this weekend. Of course, I am not completely lost. I am, of course, your host, Callum Blythe, here representing all the Championship teams, and I am joined by Alex. How are you, Alex?
Still confused as to what happened on Saturday night. Not just generally, more the football. I mean, I'm still of the conscious of what's happened in my life. I've not completely lost the plot. I know I've not been on the podcast for a while, but it's not been because of a mental health breakdown, like some may suspect. But no, I'm doing pretty well. Nervous for this weekend, as I'm sure we'll get into, and very annoyed from last weekend. But yeah, how about yourself, Callum? Everything all right?
Yeah, everything's great. It's great when you don't have a weekend of worrying about the football. But of course, we are joined by Stu as well. How are you, Stu?
Nothing's working for me, mate. I've got a headset on, an Xbox headset on because my earbuds wouldn't work. I've spent about 10 minutes with Alex trying to sort my microphone out. It's been a disaster. The only positive is that Rangers didn't ruin my weekend for once, so there is that.
Yeah, that absolutely makes a change compared to what has happened so far this season.
It does.
It? And of course, our final member for this podcast is Ethan. How are you, Ethan?
Yeah, good. You know what? The cup's overrated anyway. I had a look at the calendar and I was like, those normal cup weekends I can book off a night out anyway. So you know what? We take those every day.
I like to see that we're both in the same boat when it comes to the League Cup's overrated. You know, we'll just ignore the fact that, you know, aside from 1994, the League Cup is just irrelevant. Okay, so you know, it's like since they got rid of the European spot, that's just how it is. But yes, it is, of course, the second round of the League Cup, the first knockout round, of course, after the group stages. And with that, we have a bunch of the teams coming in from Europe. Friday night, however, saw the first of these fixtures, and it was an Ayrshire derby. Kilmarnock at home to Ayr United. Struggling Killie side, to say the least right now, taking on Ayr United, who have had a pretty good start to the season so far under Gary Naismith. Owen Sturton would open the scoring for Ayr after just 4 minutes after he got onto the end of a cross to volley past Triek, who can only just about get a hand to it, but just not enough to palm it away from the back of the net. After being under siege for much of the first half, Joe Hugo will equalise for Kilmarnock just before half-time with his effort from the edge of the box, finding the far bottom corner. Ross Taylor would give Ayr the lead again just 2 minutes into the second half with his own effort from outside the box, finding the bottom left corner. It would be the home side, however, who would look more dangerous in the second half, and they would be rewarded as Michael Schloning Larsson with a great strike from 20 yards to find the bottom corner to equalise. After a few more chances for both teams, though, it would be Killie who come out on top, as miscommunication in the Ayr defence sees Harry Stone spill the ball for Nicky Klisenko to chip the ball into the net with minutes to spare. So, needless to say, it was a pretty incredible way to open up the weekend with this Ayrshire derby Premiership side coming out on top, but there is definitely concerns there for Killie defensively, although if you are a BBC reporter, do not let Neil McCann know about that. Ayr United, meanwhile, they can...
Jonathan! Please be serious here.
Honestly, I love that clip. It's incredible. It's like Neil McCann passing off as something that isn't relevant. It's like, you've conceded twice to a championship team. Like, it very clearly is relevant, especially after, what was it, they conceded 5 against Celtic and then 4 against St Johnstone so far.
And they're pretty bad in the group stage.
Yeah, they were rubbish in the group stage. It's like they squeaked past, I think it was Elgin, they needed a 93rd minute winner, and then against Rafe, they went to penalties, and I can't remember the other results, but I think it was like they only scored twice across the group stage, but they kept a clean sheet in all of them. So it's like, oh, they look pretty solid defensively, but they're struggling up front. And then it comes to the league, and they're just shit.
It's what you miss with Neil McCann though when he's not in the league. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but he had a fallout with Tommy Wright when he was Dundee manager years and years ago. And the journalist was like, "So is there still going to be problems between you two?" And he was like, "Oh, no, that's football. Could just get heated in the moments." And they're like, "Okay, so you're going to be welcoming Tommy Wright in his next visit to Dens Park next month or something?" And he was like, "Absolutely not. Absolutely not." I was like, "You've just said you've buried the hatchet. Now you're bringing it back up again." I was like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah, he's a very weird man, Neil McCann, I'll be honest. But it's like Kilmarnock still is like, on the one hand they are through to the next round, which is ultimately what matters at this point. But so far this season they've just not looked good, really, to say the least. I feel like that's something that we'd probably agree on.
They're the
Well,
worst team in the Premiership I've seen so far.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
I've just, if there's a team I'm like, oh no, you're in trouble. It's Killie. I mean, you could maybe extend that to Falkirk. You could probably even extend it to United to a certain extent, and as I'm sure we'll get into. But with Killie, you're like, oh no, this looks bad. This. Now maybe that's just the start of the season, and they've had a bad run of form, and they'll sign a couple of players, and they'll be right as rain. But you just look at them, and you're like, all across the park, they just look just a bit shit, really. Like, not great. They're okay going forward, but they're just terrible at the back. And Stryek seems keen to throw one in. Yeah.
If only he
Give me
did that
there.
in the penalty shootout. We could have been talking about Reef against there instead.
I find with them, and I didn't think it would work when he went in there. To be honest, I didn't think it would work very well because I just didn't think Kilmarnock were a very good squad, and he would try and play attacking football. Towards the end of last season, it just clicked, didn't it? And they went on that crazy run at the end of the season, moved right out of the relegation and stuff. But this season, he seems to have just, I don't know, like the Celtic lineup was mental. Like there was times where Celtic were coming forward and it's 3-on-3, and that's just how he set the defence up to go man for man at the back, and they got torn to shreds, and obviously conceding 4 to St Johnstone as well. And then in this game against Ayr, I thought Tishbola especially looked so leggy around the park. He couldn't get close to anyone. And this is a championship team you're playing. Yeah, I think I agree with Alex. They're in massive trouble this season already, even these early doors.
it's a weird one when I've looked at it because on paper I don't think it's a bad team. On paper I actually think it reads for quite a solid Premiership team. But you've hit the nail on the head when you said they're quite good going forward, but at the back the suspect. That's kind of a Neil McCann trademark, really. He's quite good for coming in and sort of steadying the ship. For them, when it's time to build on your foundations, it's way too one-sided. So it's kind of a bit of history repeating itself from my perspective.
I was going to say, it's like, see, before Killie got that goal in the first half, it was all Ayr. Like, Ayr
Yeah.
could have been 2-0 up, 3-0 up, and, I was like, I'm convinced that if Killie don't get that goal before half-time, Ayr go on to win that game. Ayr could have won that game easily, even in the second half. And it's like, you did see, it's like, there was a difference between the second half and the first, was the fact that after Killie went that goal down, when it became 2-1, Killie actually had chances, whereas in the first half, there looked like none of that. In that
I wrote in my notes that goal at half time saved the game for them. Like, you could just, Ayr were just happy to sit in, and every time they hit on the counter, they created a chance pretty much. And I think it was about a minute before Kilmarnock scored, Ayr had a chance up the other end of the pitch, and then, switch roles and Kilmarnock go up and get that goal. And I just, so in my notes, I was just like, I don't think Kilmarnock win this game if they don't go in level at half time.
You're spewing if you're an Ayr United fan. You're absolutely spewing by full time. Like, you've just simply got to strike the iron whilst it's hot. And as you say, once it's level, when it got towards the end of the game, I felt it was quite obvious Killie were going to win it, because at the end of the day, it's still a Premiership side against a Championship side. Ayr have been at it for so long, you could tell they're getting a bit leggy, so then it was about the quality shining through. And to be fair, for all of Killie's faults, guys like Tyrese, John Jules, Alex Lowry, they have that sort of quality about them. Something was always going to give. And even though it's calamity with Stones dropping the ball, I think it's Kevin Hope that knocks into him. It's a great finish in the end as well. Just like, I'm a sucker for a chip, right? The chip is my all-time favourite kind of finish. If I'm the defender, I'm not even thinking about trying to clear it with my feet. I'm punching it and then saying, okay, let's just try and save the penalty. But yeah, it's a fantastic game to watch. A good advert for Scottish football. That's a derby. I feel that it's kind of missed a lot. We don't get enough of it unless Kilmarnock happen to get relegated. So hopefully
it's United are getting in the top flight anytime soon.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing.
It's been about 40 years since they were last in the top flight.
It is interesting though, because even I think we've seen the playoffs, and I think we've seen just generally there is a gulf between the Premiership and the Championship, and there has been it's probably the biggest it's been in quite a while, I would suggest, just by the nature of the difference in budget and TV money in the Premiership to what it is in the Championship these days, and the fact that the Premiership mostly has the bigger clubs in it. It's not like in the middle of last decade where you had Hearts, Hibs, Rangers all on the Championship, or Falkirk at the Championship, or even in League One. You've now got mostly the biggest clubs in the country are in the Premiership, and most the clubs that are next in the Championship, and you would expect Killie to be considerable steps ahead here, based off what we've seen in recent playoffs, what we've seen across it, and they weren't. They really did. Ayr pushed them all the way. I think they didn't. The one criticism you'd say of Ayr, the two main criticisms, obviously not taking their chances in the first half. Second one was they just sat way too deep in the second half and were just inviting Killie onto them. You did feel like Killie were going to score any time from about 80 minutes on, they were going to get a winner. Just more surprising how long it took rather than anything else. So yeah, I think it's one of those games where, yeah, great advert Scottish football, brilliant bit of shithousery from Killie to put them on the scoreboard at full time. I think that's very funny. Only caveated by the fact that you've beat a side who's a league below you and you struggled to do so. So yeah, I think it's, put it this way, I don't think Killie are getting past the quarter-final stage. I think this may be a high point in a season of a lot of lows unless something changes drastically.
Yeah, it's like your point about like the Premiership and Championship golf. It's like you look through the list of winners for the Championship, and aside from Falkirk, it's just Premiership teams that win it. It's usually a team that comes down, wins it on the first occasion. Of course, there is the caveats of recent edition Ross County and more than likely Livingston again. But as you say, it's like it's typically one. It's like the bigger clubs come down that they just go straight back up. It's it's like aside from, I'm trying to think. I think Dundee spent 2 seasons. Dundee United spent 3 seasons.
4.
Was it 4?
But yeah. Hibs were in the league at the time, so it was slightly different. So again, like each of those years, you're kind of like you have a couple of big clubs in the Championship, which at the minute Dunfermline are the only one that you would say are kind of club that you would. Everyone bar Callum would say are the only one with a support that probably you would say is a traditional top flight club. But even then, it's been like 15 plus years, or getting on for 15 years since they've been the top flight, and they've had an administration. They've basically been in a lower league club for all that time. Similar to kind of Falkirk plus 5 years almost, and where they are. So yeah, you're not really expecting. Well, you shouldn't be expecting Killie to be being bothered by Ayr, who are, again, traditionally, you would say a bottom half Championship side or a mid-table Championship side at best. So, yeah, I think it's, as much as Killie fans will be very happy and probably more relieved that they got past Ayr, there's a lot of signs for worry. One thing I would like to say, very happy to see Owen starting to score as well. Dundee United, young player from your neck of the woods, I think he's from Forfar actually.
Ethan.
Yeah. So, yeah, great to see another United player coming through and scoring goals at a decent level. If only we could actually get him in the first team.
Yeah, like as much as we want to talk about Kilmarnock, we should probably mention that from their perspective, like they can definitely be proud of this performance. Like they took Killie all the way. Yeah, it's like Harry Stone, aside from spilling the ball, he had a really good game and he's been really good in these first 2 games. He's definitely earned up to 4 points that United have so far. He's probably responsible for 3 of them. Like, he's been really, really good, and he's very much a very good Championship goalkeeper. So they'll be looking to take this sort of form into their game on Saturday against Raith Rovers. Obviously, I hope that doesn't happen and they have a stinker. But yeah, there's a very good performance from Ayr. And is there anything else that we might add on to this?
Probably just the fact that it's about as good as an Ayr performance I've seen since when they had Lee Bullen as the manager, back when they finished second in the Championship under him. And for what it's worth, you've got to still give Killie the credit for what it's worth, that they still had to, they still hung in there and they still grew into the game and got over the line. Because ultimately, whilst it's easy to say Premiership side versus a Championship side, it's still a derby. Derby kind of anything can happen. It's knockout football. It's a one-off game. And going into the game, Ayr United would have been licking their lips, saying, "Look, they'll be licking their wounds right now. The couple of sore defeats in the Premiership. What better chance are we going to get to go over there and really have a go at them?" And they did, because they were, for at least the opening 20-30 minutes, they were fantastic. But again, to keep that level up with not enough reward eventually comes back to bite you, especially when you're peeling off towards the very end of the game. So it's it's fair play to Ayr, but at the same time you've got to hold your hands up and say, Kilmarnock, maybe it shouldn't have been as tough as it was, but it was regardless, and you got over the line.
It definitely does feel that way. Definitely just the case of, as mentioned, the quality and probably fitness gulf between Premiership and Championship clubs. Right, so we'll move on to the Saturday games, and we're going to start off, Ethan, with your lot, Dundee, as they travelled up to Aberdeen. You were at the game, I believe.
Yeah, I was in the away end for this one.
So I'll let you take this away.
Yeah, no, it's what's new. You go to a place with high hopes as a Dundee fan in a cup game, and you come out taking an absolute scudding, and then you realise, okay, that's it for another season. For the first half, it was actually quite an even game, and I came out of it quite encouraged at half time, thinking, well, you know what, we looked quite disciplined. We created a couple of chances. It's about who's going to blink first here. I think Joe Bevan was through on goal and done very well to create the chance for himself. The Aberdeen goalie does very well to save. Simon Murray had a great chance as well to put us ahead, but I think he couldn't quite get the ball under his feet. And then a couple of minutes later, he was actually stretchered off. Horrible injury. And he was playing last season with a partially torn ACL, and it looks like it's the same knee that's given him bother this time, though. So we're kind of feeling the worst for him. And you could see as soon as he came off the pitch as well, we'll obviously lost structure because we had to change formation. Ash Habe is out for 6 weeks, and he was injured just the other week. So in a formation that typically needs 2 strikers, we're now reduced to 1 striker within like the entirety of the first team. So we'll have to change the shape a little bit, and it just wasn't the same after that, really. And by the second half, we just completely capitulated. 16 minutes of madness. Aberdeen, every time they went forward, they scored practically, and then by the time we kind of calmed the heads a bit, we're already 3-0 down. So it was an uphill battle from that point on that you're just never really going to win. And it's disappointing, but at the same time, what you can take from a Dundee perspective, I feel, was that old cliche, you take the positives from the game. Because the performance against Celtic in the league, despite the fact we got beat, was positive. The victory against Aberdeen, very positive. There were still shades of those performances in the first half, particularly between Ethan Hamilton and Ryan Finnegan. Right, that's the Dundee midfield pairing. Very industrial, cover a lot of ground, work very well with each other. I'm taking those little tidbits as right. They're in good form as individuals, and that will hold us in good stead going forward. The same with Idris Odetayo at left back and the goalie as well, Owen Goodman, that we've signed alone from Crystal Palace. I thought Odetayo and Goodman were probably the players that got pass marks for me. The rest maybe not so much. But Aberdeen as well. Fair enough. At the end of the day, they scored us 3-0. So, and the second goal for me is it's a peach, absolute peach. The way he just lets the ball run through him on the turn, top corner. It's just a real moment of quality. So, yeah, don't get me wrong. It's never. I don't want to sound like I'm covering the holes too much because we still got knocked out the cup against a team that we wiped the floor with the previous week. So I was quite angry at the time of the game, but just taking a couple of minutes to reflect on it afterwards, kind of soon settled down because obviously we've got the Dundee Derby on the horizon now as well. So it's you can't dwell on these things for too long.
It was odd watching the game because I was flicking between that and the Dunfermline game, with both games being on Premier, so it's kind of getting it was very weird as well because I think Premier took the commentary from Red TV, so you're kind of getting Willie Miller putting in his 2 bits on it, which it's not always chained to reality, funnily enough, especially when Aberdeen are concerned, but first half, I agree with you, Ethan. I actually thought there was nothing in the game. I thought Dundee, if anything, slightly edged it. Looked like it would be a kind of similar story to what happened up in down at Dens previous week, and then it just did feel like that Murray injury just really took the wind out the sails of the whole team. It is probably as soon as you saw it, it looked like it was potentially a career-ending injury. You don't want it to be. He's a player that, even though he has given me plenty of jip over the years, and he's still someone who I think he's a massive servant to well, not just to Dundee but just to football and Tayside generally over his career. So I really do wish that it isn't the last we see of Simon Murray on a football pitch. But it's one of those weird ones because Aberdeen are a very odd team. I can't quantify. I think they're probably the weirdest team in the league this year to watch. Olasanya seems to be unable to score a goal. He had 4 really good chances to score and managed to miss them all. Now, I'm fully aware of United and missing chances to score, which we'll get onto very, very shortly. But Yeah, I just can't seem to place Aberdeen. It's very Jekyll and Hyde. It feels like when it clicks, and you see it when Nisbet getting 2 goals. The second goal, like you say, even from Intel was excellent, but they're one of. I just can't place them. I really I find it almost frustrating to watch them. If I was an Aberdeen fan, I would be pulling my hair out watching that, because it feels very, very weird. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, if someone ever asks you, like, what kind of team are Aberdeen, you just show them the clip that sums it all up, that they've got a goalie with a face mask that's been reborn as at 0-0. That's just show them that and refuse to elaborate.
Yeah, it makes very much a lack of prioritisation goes on at that football club. A very odd football club, generally speaking, for many, many reasons. But like, they should be the fourth biggest team in the country at the minute. You take away Hearts with what the finance they've got, but they could finish 10th. They could finish 5th, and no place in between would shock me. It would only shock me to go down. Like, they could also go down, but it's Aberdeen, so they'll get some sort of league reconstruction through if they somehow finish in 11th or 12th to avoid that. But or I don't know, Stenos Mural somehow be in a playoff and not have got the right licence, so can't go up. They are just a weird team, a really weird team, and I find them baffling to watch.
Yeah, having Aberdeen and Hearts as third and fourth, I can hear Armati in the horizon screaming his head off. By the way, don't know if you guys heard that as well. Just like a cold, chilling echo up my spine.
An echo from Leith just coming through your dial-up line there.
I watched the first half of this. I couldn't get into the second half. I had to pop out, but yeah, agree with what you both said. I thought very even game. It did feel like one of those games that the first goal was going to decide it. I didn't see 3-0 coming. I didn't think a team would run away with it after the first goal, but I thought it would probably be 1-0 either way. Just unlucky that you're in the storm of Kevin Nisbet at the moment. Is that 10 goals for the season now? He's only played 7 games or something. Admittedly, a couple of them, or quite a few of them, are against lower league sides, but he's obviously on fire at the moment. On Olisanya as well. I don't think he should shock everyone that he misses chances. I mean, he did have that sort of good little spell towards the end of his St Mirren career before the move away. But if you look, he spent a lot of time in England's lower leagues not scoring goals. Then somehow got a move to Middlesbrough. Not sure how that happened. And then obviously bounced around. And to be fair, he was very good for St Mirren. I think he was very good for that St Mirren side, not necessarily. You can't pick up and drop him in and expect him to carry teams, but maybe Robinson just thought he could get more out of him again, but I'm just never really that impressed with him. That spell he had at the end of his St Mirren career, I thought he was unbelievable, and I thought he's fully deserved that move. But yeah, since he's come back, he's like Aberdeen. Really, I just don't get it. I don't get it at all, and I think he represents a lot of what Aberdeen looked like as well.
He's a hustler, though. He is a hustler. The game at Dens, we beat them 2-0. That was 2 going on to 5. It was a very one-sided game. That would be considered a bad day at the office for Olisanya, but he probably should have left the park with 2 assists. And it's because even on a bad day, he's always involved. He's always making things happen, and it's just basically just sheer willpower. It's and I'll be honest, it's maybe a bit of lack of quality, but sometimes you just need, and that's kind of what Simon Murray is a lot of the time for us. People call it the headless chicken, but you just cover all that ground. You keep defenders under a bit of pressure. Something eventually gives way. When Aberdeen hit the bar, that was all through Olisanya. But again, that's going back a couple of weeks. But I think you're right. Robinson's trying to kind of mould Aberdeen in the same sort of St Mirren-esque style that he had previously. But whether that work or not for a team like Aberdeen, I'm not sure. Because I think you're right. It was 3-0. To me, it didn't feel like a 3-0 game though, and I kind of stand by that. That's kind of why I had to be like, well, fair enough. They've still done it. But I came out with that thinking, how have we been taking a hiding here? They were not that good, but despite the fact we've been spanked, and we've been spanked hard.
Right, so I think that's probably all we're gonna have. I mean, Aberdeen. I mean, all I've seen was that Rabona clip, but yeah, it's Aberdeen so far this season have been a bit weird. They beat Hearts, then they got pumped last week off for Dundee, and then just complete reversal. It's just weird.
They were very lucky against Hearts, so I think that's fair to say. If Hearts had won that game, I don't think Aberdeen would have had any complaints. They're they're one that I suppose they don't play for 2 weeks now, because they're one of most sides in the league that don't play at the weekend because of the Motherwell's European game getting Motherwell getting a postponement for the game between the two legs of the Freiburg tie, and their next game is against Rangers at Pittodrie on the 30th. That'll be fun. That could be all-time levels of booing going on at that game potentially, especially if Rangers have been dumped out of Europe from Jablonec. That would be. Which I don't think will happen. I think Rangers are more than good enough to get past them, but that could be.
Don't put it past us. Don't put it past us.
It could be all-time levels of booing.
Speaking of Rangers, we're going to skip ahead so that Stu can actually talk about the game that his team is involved in. We're going to skip to the Sunday night where we have Rangers taking on St Mirren. Stu, of course, this being Rangers. I'll let you talk about this one.
Yeah, I mean, we won, so I'm happy to sign off there and leave for the night. To be honest, I would say I can't say it's a long time coming. We've been awful in every game so far. It is extremely worrying. I'm not sure. I'm trying to get into that mold of not just being very reactionary and immediately as soon as a manager isn't winning games, you just like, he's the wrong guy for us. But you do have those underlying feelings about certain managers, I feel, and I had it with Russell Martin from the word go. I was like, I don't get it. I don't think this is going to work for us. I didn't have it with Rule. I genuinely thought Danny Rule was someone that a very intelligent manager. He's obviously very highly rated. Come through multiple sort of coaching scenes of like the working with Bayern Munich and Germany. It did get bad at times with him, but the squad was. I don't think the squad was great either, and I think he was getting the most out of us at one point. Obviously, we then have the disaster of the split, and we just until Falkirk, we'd lost every game, hadn't we? But I thought, given a real go at a summer transfer window, he was going to come good for us, and there's no proof that he would, but I genuinely felt like he would. So obviously, when he went to Salzburg, I think Rangers were fairly happy with that happening because of the sort of end of the season and the sort of the way the fans were towards the end of the season. It did seem to go 50-50 on whether people wanted him or not, and I think Rangers saw it as a way out of, we'll get some compensation and we'll go again. But I just feel so wrong about McInnes. I don't think McInnes is a bad manager or anything. Even the way Rangers speak about it, there was no interview process. We all just agreed that it should be Derek McInnes, and it's like, well, I don't think that's how anything should work, because you might get a manager in from a shortlist and he blows you away in an interview, and you think actually this is the guy for us, and we just go no. We just decided it was Derek McInnes. It feels like we've tried everything. We've tried the modern manager. We're trying, the he gets it manager. We're just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks, I feel. On the game itself, it was a lot better going forward. How McInnes afterwards sat there and said, ironically, by playing one up top, we created more chances. That's not irony. That's how modern football is played. You keep trying to play 4-4-2 with two defensive midfielders, none of which can pass a ball. You're not going to fucking score goals. And yeah, we looked a lot more dangerous. I thought Kusama had his best game in a long time for us. Yokota, in flashes, I think is showing very good signs. And for the price we paid, I've been very happy with what he's offering, except the fact that he's absolutely gassed after about 40 minutes at the moment. So we do need to find a way to sort of manage his fitness until he's up to speed. But then there's still concerns. It's the defence is just ridiculously bad at the moment. Whenever we're caught on the ball, it's a chance for the other team, no matter where it is on the pitch. Manny Fernandez is obviously believed a lot of the hype around himself with the links and like the comparisons to like a poor man's Virgil van Dijk, because he just strolls around the pitch now. The amount of goals we've conceded because he just walks or jogs back half-assed and he's just never in the right position. I think even against Dundee United, and Alex can probably attest to this, the goal Dundee United scored, Fernandez is the one that makes the challenge on the What's the boy's name, Alex? I completely forgot his name. Who scores the goal?
Lucky Rose.
Yeah, Lucky Rose. And he makes the challenge on him, like about 30 yards out. And Rose is the one that gets to the back post to obviously first touch, second touch it into the back of the net. But Fernandez is like turning and moaning at players. It's like, if he's managed to get up from your challenge and get onto the edge of the ball, like, you should be able to match his run. He's no slouch. So he's just really frustrating at the moment. And we see good and bad parts of him last season, and you hope that he was developing, and he was raw, and you were hoping he was going in the right direction. Whether it is he believes his own hype, I don't know. He's just had a really poor start to the season. And it's just overall, it is a worry. There are positives though, like James Penrice come in. I thought he was fantastic for his first game. Just that's what you want. Just he showed a bit of quality. I like players that can not get a nosebleed when they're getting towards goal, which we just don't want to praise them, but Celtic are so good at just looking up at the last second in the box and having a cut back or something like that. We don't do that. All of our players get to the box and it's shoot. We're just going to shoot. Kasama is like the worst culprit for it. So it was good to see that Penrice obviously got that assist on Kasama, just being a bit smart, having more football IQ on the pitch. So I was really, really pleased with him. But yeah, I think we still need surgery between now and the end of this window. We're heavily linked with the Aston Villa boy at right back, which for the price mentioned, I think it's a fairly decent price. I wouldn't complain about getting him in. Obviously, injury concerns, but that's Rangers all over. That's all we do is sign injury-prone players, so he'll fit right in.
It does feel like, again, Rangers have spent a lot of money to assemble a really unbalanced squad.
Yep.
It's honestly like, you can understand what they're trying to do, but then they're just going about it in a very odd way. So like getting rid of Tavernier, or certainly the way he departed was very regrettable, and I don't want to go over that too much, but it is the kind of, you kind of be like, well, he's someone who probably could have done a job on the bench this season, just as backup, and you just play him. He plays 10, 15 games. He's still at Rangers. He obviously likes being there. You probably have him on less wages, but still a key part of the squad. Still obviously a key member of the squad, and someone who will bring a bit of unity to the players. But yeah, even when you're saying Fernandez is the prime example of a defender where you could see why the money's being suggested. That sort of 30 million plus was being suggested for him, but he's a player that I always get the feeling that he's just not suited to play in Scotland, if that makes sense. Like, he'll do really well in loads of other leagues, but just can't quite deal with the pace of the way the ball's played in Scotland, where it's like you say, he gets caught on the ball for basically dawdling on the ball. And if he goes plays in Spain or even Italy, he'd probably get away with that. But he's another player that I'm just like, yeah, I get why I understand why some clubs would see that value in him, but you're also like, he's also a bit shit at times. Like he's not the best player in Scotland. Like 30 plus million is what you expect the best player in the country to be going for. Like, well, that is literally a Scottish transfer record if he went for that. I just find that very odd. Just again, the way Rangers have done it, and again they've done what I thought Hearts would have done with McInnes if they hadn't got Jamestown Analytics, and that's take the manager, who's obviously a decent enough coach but can't recruit. He's just unable to recruit players. His recruitment has always been bad. It was bad at Aberdeen, of just signing EFL players who had only played in the English Championship or League One, which was basically or at Killie. Those were the three groups of players that he signed at Aberdeen. And then he did the same. Like, he looked like he was going to do the same at Hearts, and then Jamestown came in, which obviously gave him a whole world of possibilities, like Braga and stuff. And even then, there were still a few duds that he signed, like the boy from Kazakhstan, and of course Hearts' record signing Aguiu, they spent $2 million on, which is still crazy. I think I've seen him play once, and I think he was pretty shit that time he played. So, like, it feels like it's another season. And I'm sorry to say this, Stu, where it's like,
no,
the best you're going to hope for is second. Like,
yeah.
And it's not, and it just feels like there's always something going wrong with Rangers. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there's always 5 minutes away from catastrophe. It was the same, like, end of last season. You kind of thought, Rangers went on a really good run before the split, and you're like, right, okay, Rangers have clicked it here. They're going to win the title, and then complete arse collapse out of nowhere. And it just feels like, if you lose at home to it's home first, isn't it, to Jablonec?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you lose at home on Thursday night, it's just going to be the same thing again, where it's like, oh, panic stations all over, and then there's just this week of toxicity around the football club, and then they can't really do anything right. Like the really tin pot thing of like tickets still available, on the backdrop of the press conference that just looked really bad, and I know why they've done it. I guess one other thing, you know why they've done it, but they shouldn't have done it. And everything about Rangers just seems to be this ongoing shambles. It's like watching a political party at the end of 5 years in government where they've no longer got the best people in charge, and they just continue like they just go through scandal to scandal to scandal, and it feels like Rangers are that again. And I don't think anyone seems to know what the solution is anymore.
I think as well. I mean, I think the most spot on thing there is how unbalanced it is. It's we see like a player become available, and it's like, wow, that's a good deal. We should get him definitely. And it's like, well, does he fit the squad? No, but he's a good deal, so we'll just get him anyway. And then it's like, well, then we built up. I think after sales now, we've still got 7 defensive midfielders at the club, 7 first team defensive midfield, and we've got no one that can create from that position. Like, I don't see the point in adding all of those players into the squad when they basically do the same thing. Okay, admittedly, we don't know too much about Dragovic yet. He's certainly at least looks like he can shoot, which none of our other midfielders can do. So there is that positive. So I'm quite hopeful for him. And there are positives, like a couple of the signings, like Dragovic. McInnes looks fine. He doesn't look out of place. He's got all the attributes well. And if you get some of these players, like McInnes 20 years old and he already looks fairly decent. It's just that, like you say, the balance of that squad really, really worries me at the moment. And we haven't replaced Chimiti yet. I'm not sure about punting $10 million or whatever it was for Kelsey in America, based on, again, a good 6-month spell. Watched his YouTube clip. Everyone looks good on a YouTube clip. He looks like a good finisher, but you're gonna take him out of the MLS and drop him in Scotland. Apparently, he doesn't really create his own chances. He's not one of these guys. We don't create chances, so how's he going to get on the end of them? I think it's going to be another transitioning season, another season where we're almost already building towards next season. It's just McInnes has got to show something very quick. Obviously, 5-1 does help. He's got to get us through in Europe, because, again, it's already a bit toxic, but it's going to turn really nasty if we go out of Europe.
The irony of it is, and I think being in the Conference League could be the best thing possible for Rangers, because Rangers could win the Conference League. It's a tournament that is designed for them to be able to win it. Because they're too good to be in that competition, realistically, by the nature of it. Like, I think they're the top seeds, or the second top seeds in the whole tournament.
Yeah.
So if they get into group stage, you're probably going to win quite a lot of those games with not playing a full strength team, or in theory. So it's the type of thing that Rangers you could be looking. Look, you're in League Cup. If you beat Celtic in the quarterfinals, you're in the League Cup semi-final, which is your favourites to win that tournament. You're in the Conference League, where you're fancied to go very far in, and all of a sudden it could be really rosy, but you just don't trust Rangers to ever.
No, I think that's
this is the issue. It's like, this should be quite easy, but this should be something that's quite a good platform for them. But you just expect them, like, every time in the last sort of 10 years they think they're turning a corner, they seem to just turn back on themselves. And I don't, like, even off the back of the unbeaten season, the same thing happened. It's of the Europa League final season, the same thing happened. So it just seems to be this ongoing, like, it's like the never-ending story of a team that seems to just never be sure of itself. Yeah,
and I think the one good thing we can say right now is they're slowly becoming a good core at the club of young potential. They've all got to get up to speed, because we can't just play potential all season. They've obviously got to have a lot of ability. But what worries me is Celtic finally stuck their hand in their pockets, and they look, I think they're very good at just signing players that just the opposite of us sometimes, where we're unbalanced. They just sign a balanced team all the time. All of their players as well. What I noticed about their attacking lot is they can all go past players. They can all make passes, like good progressive passes. They can all shoot. Like, I feel like every one of their front line and their main midfielders can all shoot from distance and create chances like that. It's like the ball comes out the edge of the box of us, and I'm watching Cammy Devlin running onto it, and it's just there's no point of even standing up or anything, is there? You know, it's not going anywhere near the goal. It's just I don't want to be negative because
a very odd signing.
Yeah, and he was one of those ones as well where I like every time I watch him for Hearts, I thought he's a really good player. Like just because he's snapping into challenges, I'm old school. I like that sort of thing. I like that he could win the ball back, and I thought if we could put him in a midfield where he wins the ball back and gives it to the players that can play football, that might work. But then you watch him and listen, I wasn't watching him every week for Hearts, so I didn't realise how limited he is on the ball. And it is glaringly obvious, but I think he can play a part in some of the bigger games away from home, maybe where you need to soak it up at times. I think he'll be good in those. For free, I was never that fussed on it. I just think adding him into a team where you already have Barron and Raskin and all these players as well, it just didn't make sense to me to go and recruit those players when we need so much of the squad needed surgery. We just kept recruiting in a position that we didn't really need those style of players.
It felt like a signing to spite Hearts rather than a signing to progress Rangers.
I don't know. You can argue that they need a bit of dig in midfield as well. There's always nice, pretty technical players, and then when the going gets tough, you need someone just to get stuck in. Whenever I would catch Rangers anyway, I felt like Raskin was kind of doing all the pulling himself. So if it was maybe like with that in mind, just complement Raskin with a bit more legs, someone that also like-minded that way, I kind of thought it made sense. But you'd expect, when Stu said there's like 7 guys that can play there, you're expecting more to kind of get moved on from that point. I think is Diamandi, he's officially away at least, I think.
He's gone, yeah, he's Turkey now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Jamestown Analytics signing in Turkey. Make of that what
you
will.
Yeah.
It feels like with Rangers, it's like because of the fact it's like they change manager just about every year, and as you say, it's like the squad is so unbalanced. I'm not sure if they've got like a director of football or anything, but it feels like they need just some kind of stability, because that's what the issue is really from my perspective anyway. It's the fact that it's like I think Gio is the last manager to have more than a full season in charge at this point. It's either Gio or Steven Gerrard. It's just been a long time since the managers.
They come on last season.
End of the season, start of the next season.
That's crazy.
I think Clement was a full 12 months.
Oh, because he come in during, didn't he, as well? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I was meaning. Like, he was given 2 summers. Like,
it must have been Gerrard then, though, because the Broncos, he didn't get a full season, did he? He came in during, after Gerrard left. Finished the season off and then was sacked the start of the following campaign.
Yeah, it just seems like every summer it's a case of, right, we've given the manager like however long of the last season, and he was given like a clean slate or whatever, no expectations. They get into the summer, they do this big rebuild or whatever, just like sign a whole load of players, especially since this new takeover where you could argue like as much as Rangers have high expectations, it's like it's been raised. It's definitely been raised with the 49ers takeover, and they just get to October and like the manager's gone. So there's just no foundations or whatever to build on. So it's like McInnes is clearly a proven manager, and I understand. It's like I feel like a reset is needed with Rangers, where it's a case of like an acceptance that they're second, an acceptance that they're second best, and that it's going to take a few years to get up to the top again, just because of how Celtic have operated the last few years. Yes, Celtic haven't been the greatest, but you can see that operationally behind the scenes. I know they don't spend the money, but they're smarter. They're smarter than Rangers, and that's what the difference is.
They're also trying to get some more Premiership experience through the door as well, not just by appointing McInnes as manager, but James Penrice, very experienced in the league, Shanklin, Devlin. I was just kind of thinking to myself as well, as much as I hate how the sort of Rangers of old would always sign the best players in the division, there was a talking point before. Was it when Barry Ferguson wanted the job? He listed the players that he wanted to bring in. Penrice was on that list. I think Shanklin might be on that list as well. And it was ignored then, and yet we'll go down the line and suddenly they're back to that exact square. But the thing is, in that Rangers squad, when you're about you have 7 players to play in the same position, there's plenty in like the back burner that are also Premiership experience to a degree. The two that come to my mind immediately is Miovski and Cameron. Now, maybe they don't have a future at Rangers anymore. It's not for me to know. I mean, I would like to think Miovski would eventually get a crack at the whip because I'd highly rate him. But that is also like a bargaining power they can use as well. So, for example, I've seen a few people say, well, Shankland was excellent for Hearts, especially when he played West Braga. Did they maybe need to bring in Braga to get the full element there? So what would stop Rangers from going to Hearts and saying, look, Moneybed plus Miovski, try and use those boys in the back burner to kind of complement more to what you've got, whether Premiership experience is the route to continue to follow or not. I don't know. I don't think it can do you any harm, certainly, given the fact, as you say, if you're needing stability, then guys that know the league probably is a bit more comforting. But as you said, it's been quite a rocky start so far, and I don't think Shankland's necessarily been at the races either.
He looks... listen, people who have commented about his weight, I don't think Shankland has ever looked in shape whenever I've watched him. But he does look slightly out of shape, I would say. Like there's times where, and to be fair, he's having flashes every now and then where I always say he's a bit like a poor man's Harry Kane, because he does that thing where he drops in and he gets involved in the play, and obviously he's a natural finisher. But he's just like he's second to a lot of balls sometimes that you don't expect him to be second to, and it's almost like he can't get, his body's not doing what he wants it to do. And whether that is he's out of shape, whether it's just he's in a new team and there's a lot of toxicity around and everything else that goes along with it, I don't know, but it's worrying, because I generally thought he was going to be an excellent signing, and he still might be. He still might be at the end of the day.
Listen, a fat man leading the line for Rangers is football heritage. I remember the days of Chris Boyd very, very well, and thinking, how is this like the epitome of a Scottish athlete? It is mental.
Where I will defend Shankland a little bit, and I think there's a few players in the league this actually applies to, is you got to remember he's not had a summer off. He was at the World Cup until...
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
And he had to... And because of how Scotland got eliminated, he had to stay in shape for another week and a half before it was confirmed. So he got basically a week and a half less holiday than he probably was expecting to get. So he's not really had time off. And there's quite a few players, like you could say the same, Finlay Curtis is another one. It just not had that time where they would expect to be, at the beach, having a holiday. Instead, he's basically been straight from the World Cup, moving to a new club. Okay, probably not at the move house, given it's like 40 minutes down the road. But the stress of all that and the pressure of having a World Cup as well. So I think you do have to give him a little bit of leeway. However, he has looked really poor so far. And I do worry, from Rangers' point of view, that they've got him a season too late. And I think he's 31 now.
Yeah.
Rangers have had 4 opportunities to buy him for less than $1 million or less than $2 million, and they chose each time to reject it. And it just feels like this move has happened a year or two too late, and you might get, like I was thinking at the start of the season when I looked at the squad, and I probably didn't. You can just look at the players this and go, "Oh, that's a good player. That's a good player." I think I am probably most people had Rangers favourites in the league. After that game at Tannadice, I suddenly did not have them as such. So I do think we have... I just think Shankland is kind of emblematic about a lot of what's going on wrong at Rangers. However, like you say, he could score a hat-trick against Jablonec on Thursday night and suddenly he's back to being the golden goose.
I'll defend him though as well. Like, if you have 1 week in America and you eat the food there, you will be out of shape for a long time. I promise. Yeah,
I lost weight when I went to the World Cup. I still don't know how I did that. By the time I got back, I was 2 kilos lighter, and I do not understand.
Did you go to Chick-fil-A?
Do you know what? I did go to Arby's once. That might be it. That might have caused it.
Did you eat salad? Because I've heard stories about the salad over there.
I didn't touch the salad. I was a bit like, look, I want an authentic American experience. Like if they're not going to eat salad, I'm not going to. No. No, they were all lovely. They were all absolutely lovely over there. But it is quite funny, isn't it? You're now like, you're now thinking that he does look out of shape, which is not something you would have said of him 3 months ago. And it's not been like he's not been in gone to Spain and got pished every week for 3 months. He's clearly not done that. So I think maybe it's the pinstripe Rangers kit that just makes him look a bit more robust. But I Aye, I think he'll eventually get back to scoring. I just don't think he's going to be a 30 goal season striker anymore. I think he's probably.
I'm envisioning like an only an excuse sketch where like Dell's giving the halftime team talk and the camera panels. He's just sitting there not listening, like stuff in his face.
I think as well. I think you are right. And listen, I'll make sort of a last point because we've probably spoken about it too long. But it's when you say it's emblematic, I think it is, and it's not just Shanklin. It's McInnes as well. I think we had not just the time when it was the Aberdeen stuff, but I think we've had other times where we could have gone and got him, especially when the club needed stabilise. And I think that was the perfect chance to get McInnes. And now it feels like we've gone too late to get him. And however much, obviously, like you say, we've had plenty of chances to get Shanklin. I will let the club off. Well, maybe not let the club off, but I think last season it was pretty much a done deal, and Russell Martin and Thirlwell apparently nixed the deal when they come in, and there was a few, wasn't there? Josh Mulligan, I think, was the other one that we were close to, and Martin didn't want him for whatever reason, and look how that's turned out. It's just, I feel like we're always doing things reactionary, and we're just never proactive with how we do business. But that said, listen, we won 5-1, so I'm gonna actually say no, it was positive, and the goals were very good, and it was needed, definitely needed, especially going into Thursday. So hopefully we can see off the Czechs as well and get into Conference League. I'm excited if we can get into Conference League, because like you say, I think it's something different. You're playing a couple of teams that you can't pronounce the name of, and although knowing us, we'll get Monaco and Brighton somehow, so it will turn out to be a disaster. But hopefully we can get through that one, and we'll see where it goes from here. But it's a building block. That's the main thing.
That Rangers Shamrock Rovers game's going to get football stopped or something. I think they might actually be out already. I can't. Yeah. Did they lose to? No, it was Shelbourne that got knocked out by Ajax.
Shamrock are doing all right, I think.
Yeah.
Oh no, did Shamrock go? No, Shamrock did go out, didn't they? Didn't they win the first leg and then they got battered in the second leg?
Yeah, they got battered in Albania.
Yes, that was it.
They lost like 4-0, didn't they? Yeah.
Would Shanklin do what Griffiths done when the Celtic played Linfield and like bring the scarf and tie it on was it the post or the corner flag?
I think they can play Larne though. They can. Yes, that's quite likely actually.
Because we could have drawn Larne if they got through, and we both got through. But it was there is a chance we can get them.
Which is probably going to be the staunchest match ever to happen.
Pizzeria vlog.
Sorry,
it's a pizzeria vlog.
Take the whole team over.
All I'm going to say for this game, the only thing that I do know is that Paul Ensio was missing for St Mirren, and if he was available for St Mirren would have won that game, because that's just how good of a player Paul Ensio is. The proof is right there. St Mirren have won their 2 league games with Paul Ensio playing, and then they don't have him and they get beat 5-1. That's my insight on St Mirren.
I would say on St Mirren, I do feel they are not far away from Killie, and I do mean that. And I don't rate Craig Cleese as a manager. I think they have Gogic and Phillips, who are just they've got Gogic and Phillips, who are just that like hard men that manage to just get them through games. And I think there's going to be a few times this season they're going to get really found out. Like Sunday was one of those times. I could see if one of those two get injured, they're in trouble. They're in big trouble. And I just don't see. I think there's a lack of quality going forward. I really like Chris Mockery. I love this. I think he's a player that didn't get a fair crack of the whip at United. But relying on him as one of your main creative outlets does feel like it's not enough at the minute. St Mirren are a side that I worry for, alongside Killie and Aberdeen. I'm just trying to convince myself of the teams that will definitely be below United at the end of the season, if you can't tell.
Chris Mockery going to St Mirren was one of the weirder moves of the transfer window, I feel. He was part of a rubbish Edry team that got relegated, and I thought, it's like, having watched Edry a lot over the last few seasons, it's been a case of, with Chris Mockery, it's been a case of, he could probably he's a decent championship player. So, it's like, I was expecting him to end up at, like, maybe us, but, it's like someone who's probably going to be in mid-table, maybe Dunfermline, us, at best, Livingston or Partick Thistle, and then ended up at St Mirren. I was like, where's that come from?
Obviously just got like a glimpse of quality that they felt like they could be the ones to fix him. I can fix him. I swear he's a fixer-upper.
It hasn't worked for them, but it could work for us. Yeah, I should say, I've always rated McCray when he was at United. I think, like I say, he's one of those players who just didn't get a fair chance. And other ones like Kai Fotheringham at St Johnstone, who's now at St Johnstone, of these kind of attacking midfield players that come through, and then I can't remember if I'm pretty sure he was there when Goodwin was still there. Just Goodwin just didn't play him. So yeah, but I just think St Mirren, like you saw at the end of last season, they won the playoff, but they weren't convincing in the playoff final. They weren't like they're a team that give me all the kind of markers of a team that's going to finish 11th. They just look like they look like a team that will be in a relegation playoff, and they'll have a season where they will have high points. And now I've said all this, they'll finish 5th, but like they just, unless they sign 2 or 3 new players, especially going forward, it just feels like it's this law of diminishing returns with St Mirren. Like it's the same. There's some really, like, they've lost Mark O'Hara to Killie, which was again which actually probably was a right player to move, but they've not. I don't think they've really replaced him. I think it's fair to say there's a few others that you're just like, not sure about this. Not sure where goals are going to come from. Not really.
It's Killie and Phillips, really. It's the Killie and Phillips show when things are happening.
And I like Killie and Phillips. I actually wouldn't mind United tried to sign him, but I don't think he's going to be the player. Like, you need more than him. You need a lot more than him to be a team that's competitive in the Premiership.
I'd be surprised if he wasn't linked with moves away as well, because being just a star player, and I think I did see links with him being down south. So that just raises the question, if they were to sell him as well, you lose him and O'Hara, that could be detrimental for them. But assuming he stays, they still need to build more. But it kind of goes, when you come into Killie, it kind of feels like when I look at the Killie squad, it's like, while I'm saying it's a good team on paper, they're lacking a good, proper, I think, centre half. I look at the St Mirren team and it's like, well, they're the same, but they're also lacking, I feel like, a proper goal scorer up front and maybe a proper creative somewhere. They're needing more than just sort of one solid addition. I mean, you can't run the line of trying too many experiments, because ultimately, there's no plan B when you go with experiments half the time. It's like you sink or swim. If you sink, it's okay. Now you look at the January window and you need the war chest out already.
And you do worry as well, St Mirren being probably, they are a fan club and they have ran themselves very well over the years. But they did lose. They lost their chairman, who's now chief executive Rangers. They are a side that they don't have money to spend in the same way that, say, if United were in issues, or if Aberdeen were in issues, you do feel like purse strings will be opened, which just St Mirren can't financially do at the minute. So you do fear that they could be dragged into that mire. I actually don't particularly want to see them down there, because I actually do really enjoy going to Paisley. I think they're a very good club, and a very welcome team in the Premiership, even though they are dirty bastards at times. I feel like they've always had that reputation. I'm joking. I'm joking. Not really. But yeah, it's. I think I do fear a little bit for them. I think it's fair to say, and I think that seems to be shared amongst the three of you.
I probably fear for the players more than anything, because if they did get relegated, like, I don't know if you've been there enough to know what that stand is like, the angriest stand in Scottish football. I would not want to be like applauding them on the back of like a relegation.
Could you imagine the 3-0 loss at home to Arbroath? What that's going to be like? See, I don't even think it is that angry a stand. Like, it's a normally angry stand.
No, I've commentated there. It's fucking mental. It's insane. Like, their player could honestly like boot one of your own like right in the pus. Referee will give a free kick and they will like blow up as if you've just spat in their child's like face. Like, honestly, I've never seen anything like it.
See, I've always assumed, like, and I've seen the away, like, I've obviously sat in the away in there, but I've always assumed just because of like where the microphones are placed on the cameras and it's a really low camera gantry, it just picks everything up. Because the Dode Fox at Tannadice is pretty moany at times, but I'll take your word for it. It is as bad as.
Ask any commentator that has to sit in that bit, and they all say the same. It's insane, and it's like how it'll be like, it could be over something so petty and small, and they go from 0 right to a fucking 10 immediately. That's what always catches me off guard.
Well, it's angry as when I was at Auchinleck for the game against Killie, their fans were particularly angry. So I can only imagine what it's like for a trip to St Mirren. I've not been to Paisley for the game, although Alex, I do find it weird that you had that statement there of enjoying visiting Paisley. I think you might be the first person to ever utter that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I can't wait for St Mirren to end up in the Championship next season, so I get to experience the wonders of that angry stand.
But what if Rafer in League One?
Not happening.
No,
To be fair, it was St Mirren who sent us into League One last time, so there we go, that's how it's going to go.
I was going to say, like, there's definitely will not be an Inverclyde derby next year in the league because Morton are going straight down. I think, well, if they can get to the end of the season, I know that's a YouTube video.
We talk about Alex. They've just raised $6,500 in an hour or something, haven't they? They're fine.
Yes, that's not at all worrying. I feel like football in Inverclyde and Renfrewshire is going to have a tough few months.
If you're in a relegation battle, you just have to be smart about it. Just simply go 1-0 up, then pitch invade, then the game will get called down and there. That's come on. Oh.
I think, right, Stu, I'll let you go now, so that we'll...
Right. Cheers, guys. Do you know what? I was hoping to stay on for Hearts because I wanted to wax lyrical about Kyoto. He was excellent. So when you get to that, please wax lyrical about him because I thought he was excellent. But yeah, that's all from me, guys. So thank you very much, and I'll speak to you all later.
Right, see you in a bit.
Do that, pursuit. Anyway, yeah, that Kyoto was fucking shite.
Aye, what a pish player! No,
Never heard of him. Was he on the pitch?
They were behind against Inverness.
Yeah, is that what we're moving on to next? Actually, the Hearts game.
No, going on to Dunfermline.
Dunfermline.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, that's well. I'll let you get started. Actually, I think you've got something you want to say about that now.
Yes, right. So, speaking of the Championship, we do of course have Dunfermline at home to Ross County, League One. Ross County, of course, having been relegated last season in very comical manner. They're making a return to East End Park to take on their last season's fellow Championship rivals Dunfermline in what is the only all-lower league tie of this round. So, and with the first half, this was... I have no idea how Ross County weren't 2 or 3 up in this half. Like Ashton Oxborough, I said it in beforehand, it was a case of when it came out, it's like when Dunfermline signed him, it was like, oh god, Dunfermline have a competent goalkeeper signed permanently. This is a miracle. And he's definitely proving us right because he made a very good save against Brian Graham, who really should have done better with that chance when it was just him in front of goal. But yeah, it's like despite some, and there was a few chances for Dunfermline as well, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's like somehow first half would be 0-0, but then the second half, however, County would get the lead with Jamie Lindsay just completely unmarked, just in the middle of the box, just heading home in the 58th minute. 75th minute, Alan Oyerworth, who finishes off a lovely passing move to equalise for Dunfermline. It was his debut on loan from New England Revolution's B team, which... where have they got that signing from? I'm not sure what sort of signing analytics company Dunfermline are using, but
it's the same one Sheffield United are using because it's the boy James Board.
Oh yeah, because it's like Board. It's like American gambling guy and whatnot.
Not at all shady at all. Like it does not at all come across like he's seen what Tony Bloom's doing and he's just going to try and copy that, but be slightly worse about it. Like that's what it looks like. He's gone. He's asked ChatGPT for like the data analytics that they use, and then just like tried to make it in a way that he doesn't get sued. Is my view, reading all that. I'm sure they're brilliant data analytics, but
Dunfermline not bring a good crowd for this game as well. Did I not see that online that they had quite a decent crowd, like, highly anticipating that they were going to go through here.
Yeah, you can definitely tell by the end, considering the noise that was made, as in the final minutes, despite Dunfermline having some of the best chances for a winner, former Raith Rovers striker Brian Graham would put in a delightful ball over the top that would be run onto by recently departed Raith Rovers winger Richard Chin, my Malaysian king, who, with a beautiful first-time volley, would find the top right corner. And yeah, just a really nice goal, this one. And I'm not being completely biased. It's a really good finish from Richard Chin, which I'm delighted for because I love him. And with that, Ross County of League One have made it to the quarterfinals, eliminating Dunfermline. So, yeah, it's like with this one, it was definitely deserved for Ross County. I know it's like some of the stats look pretty even, but when you actually watch the highlights back, it's like, wow, County could have been, as I say, at least two up at half time, and then yeah, but it's like with the goals that they did get, they were really well taken. Dunfermline looking very messy at the back for Ross County anyway. It's like with their attack and whatnot, it definitely bodes well for the rest of their League One campaign. I think they've won both of their games so far in League One. But
we played them in the group stage actually, and I thought they were very good. Even though they're League One on paper, on grass they were very competent, very well organised. But we really struggled. We drew with them, I think, 1-1, and they actually won the bonus point shootout too. And a lot, and rightfully so, us being the Premiership side, a lot was made about how maybe we weren't necessarily at the races. My main take coming out of that game was like, Ross County are actually I didn't recognise a lot of the names in the starting lineup, but regardless, I thought they looked very, very solid. So. And you know what they're like as well, Roy McGregor, with the money that they've got. That'll be a very well-backed team as well. So, yeah, you're saying winning the two league games, and they've got a home tie as well, like in the next round of the Cup too. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they can really take the game to Hibs.
I mean, if there's one team I don't trust
to
go up to Dingwall and win, it would be Hibs. Just like they are a team that do always seem to make these games more difficult than they need to be. But yeah, I think it is interesting. You do look at the Ross County team, and there's players that you don't recognise, but then there's players that are that played in the Premiership. Like there's that squad is not a League One squad by any stretch of the imagination. And it makes it all the more just farcical that they went down last season. I mean, that squad should have finished about third at worst in the Championship. I mean, it's probably I was talking recently with our colleagues from another podcast about seasons from hell. I think that is the season from hell. Like, there's no redeeming features to Ross County last season. It is so bad. Like, it's just it starts bad and gets worse. Like, there's this season for them is you're thinking like it's probably the weakest League One's been in a while. There's no. Hamilton are the only other club Hamilton and Airdrie probably the two others in the division.
I'd argue the opposite actually. I think this is the strongest League One we've seen for ages because you have Ross County, of course, who I just want to say is like watching these highlights, they look more like a Championship side than they did at any point last season, which is impressive to say the least.
That relegation game at start.
The relegation.
One of the funniest matches. It was so funny because, like, as a neutral watching, and maybe there's different opinions for you, Callum, but like Rafe didn't need to try in that game. Like there was no reason, but they could have just sat back and lost 2-0. No one would have cared. No, Rafe were going over and above to relegate Ross County, and it was extremely funny to watch. And even to the point that the DJ was playing "Get Down" at the end of the match. It's like
we got a warning from the SPFL for that, by the way.
Well worth it. Absolutely well worth it. I mean, it's like it's not even. Like, it's so funny. I'm sorry. It was one of the funniest matches I've watched in a while. It's funny when bad things happen to clubs that aren't your own. Have you noticed?
No, absolutely agreed.
But like, they've got quite a lot of that squad still, and you would kind of think maybe they completely clear decks, completely rebuild from scratch. But they have kept that squad. They actually don't seem to be. They've made a great start to life in League One, but you would expect that. But, they've Kettlewell is still the manager, which don't know why they've done that.
I think when they appointed him, they kind of knew they were already on the way down, and this was always going to be the idea that they went down. He's the guy to get them back up, to be fair.
I mean, it is also Ross County, so they can only appoint one of 3 managers at any given point.
Actually, Ethan, I do want to say, by the way, that wasn't the case because Kettlewell was on a deal initially until May.
Right, okay. So he was
brought initially until May, and then it's like a week after they got relegated and whatnot, and they put out like a club statement about what was going on for next season. It was then that they announced, yeah, we're keeping Kettlewell, and everyone was just like, what the fuck?
It is if they're a very weird. Like, I've always felt they're a weird team just because of them being a team right in the very far north of the country. They don't really attract Scottish players. They kind of have to look to different markets for players, or if they do, they have to overpay over the odds to get people to move up to a place that is not a particularly cheap place to live. I don't like. You could have imagined them being a Falkirk. Like, you could imagine them, like, at the start of the season. This could be 3 or 4 years in League One. They are back to where they were like a decade or 2 decades ago as a kind of mid-table second division team. But now you're kind of thinking, well, actually, this could be what they could. They're 90 minutes away from a trip to Hampden, something that has not come that often to Ross County. Like, even in the high points. I know obviously the one League Cup back in 2016, but
yeah, 10 years ago, I think that was actually the last time they were in Hampden.
Yeah. So that's how far back you have to go for them to be there. And I know they've been in the Scottish Cup final famously against United, which we won, as I have to say.
Don't talk about the semi-final, please.
Or the quarters.
But it's you just think with Ross County something is that maybe this is them turning the corner. Maybe this is them kind of going back. And they're not a type of... They're a side that if they win if they win League One this season, you wouldn't put it past them winning the Championship the following season. They're such a... Just by the way they feel like they're a very momentum-based club, and it's either all good or all bad. Maybe you can maybe attribute that to maybe there being a lack of a club identity at times, but yeah.
Any chance?
Sorry?
I was quoting Derek Adams. Any chance?
I've left players 100 times better than this in League Two in England. No, a very weird man as well. Another very weird person that seems to be involved. Like they do seem to attract odd people. Like, and I don't mean this in like both in good and bad. Like, but even someone like Ronan. Is Ronan Hale still on the books at Ross County? Is he another one?
No, he went
they
to
sold him.
Gillingham in January.
I was going to say, yeah. Sorry, no, that's right. I remember looking this up because I was like, someone asked me if he's still there, and I was like, I don't know, because he was another one who was anonymous at the start of last year. Well, obviously he is now, but he went to League Two in England, and there was chat of like clubs in the Championship in England going him, or I think there was Dundee United tried to sign him at one point.
Yeah.
So again, it's like just everyone there seems to be they're either really good or really bad. It's like even Regan Charles Cook, who was the best player in the Premiership, and then went to being shite for a few years until Motherwell have kind of picked him up, and it seems to now clicking with Motherwell. There's just something about that club that I don't. It's very weird. It's just a very odd football club. I mean, there's a lot of odd football clubs in the country. I feel like Ross County are one of the weirdest ones, though. I don't know. It's never meh. It's always just really great or really terrible, and no in between.
I would say, so in regards to League One, as I was saying earlier, I actually think it's a really good League One because, as mentioned, we do have Ross County, but you've also got Hamilton Accies, who are coming out of the season of hell. You've got East Kilbride, who are coming up and playing good football. They beat Dunfermline, of course, in the League Cup group stages. You've got Airdrie, who came down as well with Ross County, but they're not having the greatest of starts. You've got Alloa as well. They've been one of the top part-time teams in that league for ages. And then, of course, there's Queen of the South and Montrose in amongst that as well, but they've not had the best of starts either. But yeah, it's like League One looks really strong for this season. But yeah, it's like Ross County are looking so much better than at any point last season. Even when they beat us, I went up to Dingwall and they beat us 2-0, and even in that game, I looked at Ross County. I was like, they've got the 3 points, but they just look dead. Ethan, I'm going to let you talk about Ross County.
My thoughts were primarily when I said about watching them against us in the group stage game, but with them playing on away to Dunfermline as well, I was favouring Dunfermline to see this game through, and I didn't think it'd be close, to be honest. I actually thought Dunfermline would actually win semi comfortably. So when I saw the scoreline, I certainly seen it as a result, and as you say, for the goal's a great finish. The fact that Brian Graham's still going, pushing 40, my knees are sore. I'm 25. I don't even play football anymore. Never mind, Brian Graham, at his fine mature age, still going. And by the way, former Hibs man as well. So there's maybe something in the script for him when Hibs finally come up their way towards Dingwall. But no, I think Alex has a good point. They are very momentum based. When they first got into the SPL, if I remember correctly, it was part of a 40-game unbeaten run. They actually had that carried on into the SPL. I think maybe the opening, I think it was double digits. I think it was maybe the first 11 games, and they went on to finish fourth, I think, in the first season up. It was phenomenal. Not to say that they're on course for that now, but it's just historically, it's an interesting observation, and you feel they've certainly got momentum now. They win the 2 league games. They give a good account of themselves against higher league opposition, evidently. And that can only give you confidence going into the league campaign. I've seen it myself, obviously, with when Dundee have been in the second tier. Those cup games against Premiership sides, you take the positives from those and you translate it into, you emphasise on it, you build on it, you go into the next league game and you carry that on. Very similar to another team we'll actually talk about, I think, very soon as well, in the form of Partick Thistle.
I was just going to say, they've got Airdrie away. On the next 2 games are pretty big. They've got Airdrie away and they've got East Kilbride at home in the league. I think they've got a Challenge Cup game in there as well, but I don't know how seriously everyone's taking the Challenge Cup these days. But you're thinking, I tried watching the new SPFL Player I was doing in the interest of journalism, but I watched a bit of Hamilton Airdrie, and I must admit I thought Airdrie were awful in that game. They looked really, really bad. They actually looked a bit like Ross County did last season in the Championship, but a league further down. And you just think, if Ross County, if they win these 2 next games, right, against 2 of the teams you would suspect would have, at the start of the season, would have been their main rivals in Airdrie and East Kilbride. I know Hamilton as well. I think they've got Hamilton in a few weeks after that. Then you're suddenly looking at it, right, they've got 12 points from their opening 4 games. They're in the quarterfinals of the League Cup. It's looking like it could be a very, very good season. And that game against the East Kilbride in a week on Saturday, it's actually I think it's the live Alba game that week. It'll be really interesting to see how they get on in that, and I think also a big test for East Kilbride as well, who have looked quite good at the start of the season, but I'm still not quite convinced by them. I still think they're just I think they need another year in that league before I think they're a bit like Cove, where they've powered through League 2, again, far tighter than it looked like it was going to be at the start of the season, but I just think they're going to drop too many points in League 1, so I do think that it will come down to, it's County's League 2 lose, I think, although I did say I've been very impressed by what I've seen from Hamilton so far in League 1. I didn't think they'd quite be ready in their first normal season, not ran by, in the first season ran by someone who knows how to run a football club. But yeah, it's very interesting with Ross County. I do think Dunfermline, though, again, this is something, and I do feel that when a number of parts of the media do give Neil Lennon a lot of credit, because they seem to be, again, another team that I think are quite Jekyll and Hyde, and especially in cup competitions. They can pull a performance you're not expecting, like against Hibs last season, or
Aberdeen.
Or Aberdeen, yeah. They pull a lot of really good performances like that, but then they'll drop a number of stinkers. But Lennon always he's one of these guys who always seems to get the credit for the big cup shocks, deservedly so, but he gets very little criticism. He does from Dunfermline fans, but out with sort of Fife, he doesn't seem to get any criticism for stinking form with a budget that should be right up the top of that division. I mean, they really should be. I think I wouldn't say they've got the biggest budget in that league, but I don't think it would be far off it in the Championship anywhere. I could be totally wrong with that, but I do think they've probably got the second or third biggest budget in the league, and they're probably not going to finish. Well, I could be wrong, but I don't think they're going to finish second or third under Lennon.
Yeah, I'm taking another look at it. They've maybe not replaced certain players that left last season. I seem to remember they had a defender. It was maybe the right back was one of their star players. Because obviously they had the cup run as well, getting the Scottish Cup final, and he was the one under several radars, especially in the top flight. I think they lost quite a lot of quality. They've maybe not replaced. I'll double check that and fact check myself. But that could be a struggle for any team. And Lennon, from what you hear about the way players talk about him, he is meant to be a very, very good coach, and I would agree. There's no real criticism out with Fife when these results go against him. Well, that's because all his mates work in the media, but also I guess maybe just having that sort of that pedigree about him as well. Yeah, I would say there's regardless that they should be, as you say, right up there fighting for that promotion spot. And is it just one more note on Ross County? Am I putting my balls on the table? Is it really a bold thing to predict that they could go the full season unbeaten at home? Is that something they've accomplished before?
They've definitely done it in the Highland League, but I don't know if they've done it in the league. Maybe there was one season. Was there not one season where they did it where they in like League One or would have been the second division where they got like 90 points or something? There was one, what I say, like 2007, 2008, something like that. That would have been 2008. That was because that was the year Gretna went up, but and Gretna won the final day at Victoria Park. But I think there's something like that. Sometime in the mid 2000s, they went a whole year where I think they went unbeaten. I could be wrong on that, but they did get a massive points total.
It does ring a bell. I think they won the league at Hampden as well. Actually, I think they beat Queens Park away from home to win the league to go into the first division. That seems to ring a bell as well.
That was us.
That was never mind. I'm talking shit. That was Wraith Rovers.
There was definitely an era where they dominated a league, and they, I think, like they might have only lost one game or something, but I can't remember. It might have been the second division, might have been the third division. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they definitely have had that. But yeah, I don't think it's that bold, especially at home. I think you can. I don't think many teams are going to go up to Dingwall and get 3 points, especially part-time teams. And I think travel is a big issue for part-time teams, especially. I know League One almost exclusively plays on Saturdays these days, but you doubt. I don't think you're going to expect East Fife to go up there on a Saturday in December and pick up 3 points. Could be wrong. Could be one of those things that you can imagine. You can maybe imagine East Kilbride going and doing that, especially if Mick Kennedy pays for hotel rooms for the squad, which he's done in the past for away days up north. So, but yeah, I think they're a team that if they didn't win that league, and I know Callum, you're saying it might be stronger league one than I'm giving it credit for, but if they don't win that league from the start they've made and the position they're in, there'd be a lot of questions that would have to be asked, especially now when they've got a bit of momentum behind them.
Yeah, it's like winning the league or getting promoted at the first time of asking. Anything other than that is probably a failure for Ross County. I do want to go back to Dunfermline, though. You were saying about lack of criticism. It's like there were multiple points during last season, especially in the first half, where Dunfermline went on runs of losing 3 games in a row or whatever, just like winless runs of about 5 games. And you never really heard anything outside of Dunfermline fans and me on the podcast in the Championship Penitentiary just saying surely there's going to be pressure on Neil Lennon or whatever. And even into the new year, there were times where it was like that. It was just from February onwards, everything just clicked. It just went on like this really good run of form. But yeah, it's like you were saying about like the budgets and the transfer window. It's like they've been weirdly quiet. That's the thing. It's like they've lost loads of players, and they lost Chaloka Mullen, and I don't think they've replaced him properly yet. But yeah, it's like you say, they probably will end up come the end of the transfer window, and they've sort of ramped up a bit the past week and a bit when it comes to players coming in, especially coming in on loan. You can see, they probably will end up in third come the end of the season, and that's where I put them. But I put the caveat of basically what I said in my predictions video and in the pre-season preview or whatever, just saying that they probably will finish third. They'll probably be a bit like I expected them to be a bit like Arbroath, but across the full season, because Arbroath last season had an excellent start to the season where they were maybe like 5 points off of Partick Thistle and St Johnstone at Christmas, but then absolutely fell off a cliff. They were absolutely like mid-table form come the end of it, but they still were. But they just had like a big gap to fourth and everyone else. I just sort of thought they'd be in that sort of gap for the season where it's like they're clear of the teams chasing for the playoffs, but not challenging for a title or anything. Just because of the fact the gap between them and Partick Thistle last season and St Johnstone last season was that big, and it was because of the inconsistency with just having a very young squad, which I thought, you know what, keep the core of this squad for another year. Like we've seen the form from the second half of the season, that carries over, and they're looking to be in a really good spot. I still think they will finish third, but yeah, it's just been a very slow start. And of course, their next 2 games, they have a trip to Livingston, who are coming off a 2-0 defeat at Partick Thistle, of course. But again, they've had the week off, and then after that, it's Raith Rovers in the derby, and as we've seen derbies, anything can happen. So yeah, it's
I don't know why I said I would need to wait to check. I've got my laptop right in front of me, so I've actually just looked at like all the signings that have came in and all the players that have left over the summer. And yeah, no, that's exactly, you named the boy Mullen. That was exactly what I was thinking of, the defender that had to leave.
Yeah, Scotland under 21 international. He's gone down to Wigan, I want to say.
Yeah, and Matty Todd was another one as well. It was quite big for them. That's went on to sign for St Johnstone also in the top flight. So there is quality that's left, but through the door, I've you touched on the goalie, Oxford, who I rate very highly. I would have taken him at Dundee. I rate him very highly. I thought he should have been the Motherwell starting goalie last season ahead of Callum Ward, but understandably Ward's better with his feet, and that thus got the manager nod. But I'm looking at the list, and there's quite a fair bit of quality in there with Luke Robinson from Wigan, who used to be at St Johnstone, and then impressed at St Johnstone, by the way. Aaron Donnelly on loan from Dundee as well. That's a Northern Irish international. He's a very good centre half, more than capable of taking a place in a Dundee team if he had a head coach that favoured him. For whatever reason, he's been sort of frozen out, and I don't think it's down to his ability. I've advocated that the whole time. And Ollie Shaw is the last one that I'll note as well. Because he divides opinion, but I think his record's normally quite good for converting at the very least, no?
Yeah, it's like the last few seasons, it's like last season, trying to think, Aki's last season in the Championship, Aki's last season, he had just an incredible run of form at the start of the season, and it just completely tailed off in the second half. But the thing is like he is very much a proven goal scorer at this level.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an issue that Dunfermline had a few seasons ago was the fact that they had no one scoring goals. They had like the lowest in the SPFL, I think tied lowest in the top 5 tiers and 4th worst in the entire country. They were absolutely shocking in front of goal. Last season they did remedy that thanks to Andrew Todd. But outside of him, it's like their forward options, you've got Chris Kane, who is fine, but not great. And then you've got Zach Rodden, who is again fine, but not great. There was a real lack of quality. So it's like when Ollie Shaw rocks up, you're thinking, okay, that's going to be someone who's going to be able to do something for them. And so far, he hasn't really got going, I think.
It's still early days in the season, though.
Yeah,
but you won the league with Kilmarnock, too. And having that league-winning experience, that will always hold you in good stead, too, I feel.
I think as well, you got to remember with Shaw, he was at a basket case of a club last season who probably wasn't getting paid his full wages as well, if what we've been told to be believed happened. So I think you do have to kind of remedy that. You don't know where you're going to be playing your football next season, so it is a bit of a culture shock for him. One name as well I did want to mention was Sam Cleo-Harding, who's on loan from Dundee United, who I think he's still very highly rated at United, and I think he's somebody who's kind of going to be seen as another, hopefully a slight upgrade, but in a similar vein to Ross Graham. Ross Graham went out on loan to Dunfermline and did him the world of good before coming back and being a key part of the side that finished in 4th in the under Tam Courts, which is bloody hell, that's a long time ago. But like he was cup tied, I believe, for the game at the weekend, and you do spot that was where the frailty was at the back. Where I think he provides a certain amount of stability at times. He is prone to the odd brain fart, but he is a young player, so you can kind of forgive him a little bit, and he's still learning his trade. But he is one that I think, if Dunfermline were to be in the top 4 spots in the league, he would be one that would be a key part of the campaign. I would actually note, I was just having a look at the Championship and just having a quick think. There's a team that are basically on the verge of bankruptcy in Morton. There's Queen's Park, who seem to be a bit of a basket case as well, and there's 2 part-time sides. So you're really thinking it's probably the easiest Championship in a while to finish in the top 4. Just like in terms of you shouldn't be worrying about relegation. And I know Arbroath and always punch above their weight, and Stenhousemuir will get on to how great they've been, but it is not the strongest Championship. that there's been in a quite a long time, I would say, and I think it would be a very bad season if Dunfermline were not in the top 4 spots in the league.
Yeah, I'd absolutely have to agree. It's like I feel like the bottom 2, it feels almost inevitable to include Morton in. Whilst yes, an impressive start so far from Stenny, maybe I'm not entirely convinced they will continue this for the full season. But then of course, it's like you do have Livingston as a team that's come down, and Livingston always get put as one of the weaker ones. So it's like, funny enough, when Livingston were last in the championship, we were like, oh, this is the weakest championship for a while as well, just because of the Premiership team that came down was Livingston. So it definitely was a bit of that. But yeah, Dunfermline really should be top 4. They've just had a very slow start. They were trying to think again. The first game of the season against Inverness, they were shaky at the back. Like Inverness could have easily won that, but also Dunfermline could have easily won that. There were just 2 teams that really rubbish in front of goal on that day. And then against Ayr, it was a game that also could have went either way. Like Harry Stone made an incredible save at the end to deny Dunfermline from a winner. But then also, the same can be said of Ashton Oxborough. He made a few really good saves as well. So yeah, it seems to be taking a while to click, this Dunfermline team. So we'll be interesting to see how that goes for them the rest of the season. Right, so we'll escape the Championship now and move on to an all-Premiership affair, and that is, of course, the final Saturday fixture, and that was Dundee United against Celtic in what proved to be a rather bizarre game. Alex, of course, you went along to this one, so I'll let you take us away.
I was one of the 1,500 United fans who was at that game. It's one of the weirdest games of football I've ever been to in my life. I genuinely, I've never gone out a 4-0 drubbing thinking we could have won that. Like, we genuinely could have won the game, and I actually think we actually dominated a lot of the possession as well. It's a very, very weird football match. I must admit, I think Celtic took their goals very well. I think from a Celtic point of view, they were lethal when they needed to be, and I think that's maybe slightly worrying. But also, I think there was more positives than negatives from United point of view. I think the big negative is that we didn't score. The positives is we hit the woodwork 5 times, which I've never seen that happen in any game ever. Never mind in a game against one of the Old Firm. I think we'll probably get into the controversial stuff, but I think United were denied a penalty, and I really don't think Celtic's second goal should stand. I can understand the rule being like it's not the goal scorer that's touched the ball, but he has effectively assisted the goal, because if it doesn't touch his hand, it rolls out of play. But the fact it's touched Huga's was Huga's hand, right? Yeah, Huga's hand. It just allows Duran to tap in. I would say there is a lot of positivity. I can take positives going into the derby off of that. Maybe I'm too confident. But I think you're looking at, you looked at the team going into it. I kind of thought United were going to get beat 4-0 and it was going to be embarrassing. United still got beat 4-0. It just wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think there's a lot of players, and it's been another summer of rebuild, another rebuilding summer at Tannadice, which is quite frustrating. Just the lack of consistency, and the fact that I feel like I'm falling in love with a lone player every single season, which is going to happen again with Yoro, who's just signed and sort of made a cameo at the end of the game. It looked very impressive, but there is a number of I think there's a number of players across the park that you're thinking, right, when this clicks, and I think it isn't far off clicking, United will be very good, and I do think that it just needs if one of the forwards could just get a couple of goals, you're suddenly looking at, this is a team that will be looking at the top half of looking towards the European spots rather than looking at the relegation playoff spots. Now maybe I'm being way too optimistic in my thought process behind it, but I do actually think there's quite a lot to take in the fact that you're looking at, right, goalkeeper, pretty solid, centre halves probably need a little bit of work, but they're not too far off it. The only real problem area for me is right back, and that's Rollins, who's joined, is the New Zealand player. I've watched him play 4 times now. I don't think he's good enough. And I don't like writing players off, especially when they came to a new country. But I really have yet to see. He looked out of place against Montrose. He's looked out of place here against Celtic. And I just can't see him being... He's the one that I would probably drop for the derby, because I just think he seems to be a problem area. 2 of the goals came from his mistakes. I just do think there needs to be a little bit of a rethinking right back. The other big news out of Tannadice is that Will Ferry seems to be on his way to Anderlecht, is the chat. United have rejected a bid apparently of €2.5 million, which is crazy considering United had accepted a bid of €2 million 3 weeks ago and he didn't want to go. So some odd player trading model there, but apparently Anderlecht are pretty keen on him. So it does seem to be that there's been some movement on that in the last couple of days, and the Belgian press seem to be suggesting that Anderlecht will get that over the line at some point this week. So it looks like Ferry will have played his last game for United, which is a shame. But I think I'm glad that a player that was bought on a Bosman is going to go for over $2 million, and United's biggest transfer in 12 years, so that kind of goes to show. Actually, probably United's biggest transfer since Andy Robertson, believe it or not, which is also left back. So something about left backs in United. So yeah, very odd game. I don't know what you guys thought of it. Maybe I'm very much looking at this through tangerine tinted lenses, but I didn't actually think United deserved a 4-0 drubbing. I think that was probably a bit of an unfair reflection on how the match actually went.
I didn't actually watch the game. I listened to it on the radio. And then I caught up with the highlights afterwards. And that was one thing they kept saying on the radio was, United, despite being 3-4-0 down, they've actually done very little wrong here. And they kept emphasising this point that, on one hand, they hit the woodwork several times. I think the only thing worrying about that is statistically speaking, it's 2 games in a row they've failed to register a shot on target. But it sounds like, with a bit of luck, I think after watching the first one, that could have went anywhere when it hits up the post the first time. When you're watching the way it tees up, you're probably expecting that to be a goal. And that goes in, it changes the whole complexion of the game. So from the sounds of things, it was just one of those, you're up against a Celtic side that, they can be pretty relentless, but also I don't think the second goal should stand. If it is the second goal that hits off the hand of who, I'm baffled by that. Because it's not consistent with what we've seen previously. I was led to believe that if it hits a hand full stop in the build up to a goal, you simply can't allow it to stand. So I think United have been hard done by there. But at the same time, where they've been hit hard, it's just sheer moments of quality. The Trusty header's an excellent header. The Chinetki goal's an excellent strike. It's just one of those where, again, it can happen to anyone, and you can't really take it too personally. You can't take it to heart, and I'm sure that's what Jim Goodwin's probably saying to them as well after the game.
That's the one positive I would take actually as well, listening to Jim Goodwin after it, is last season United started really attacking football really well. I think if people remember watching the European games, it was excellent in both games against Rapid Vienna, just probably were short on a couple of bodies. Well, Owen Sturton actually had a one-on-one chance to kill the game in extra time, which the keeper makes a great save from. But Goodwin kind of panicked. It was a 3-3 draw against Hibs. It was which was probably one of the best games of the whole season across the Premiership. Yeah. He kind of panicked and kind of reset and went back to a kind of defensive-minded football because United threw away a 3-1 lead in that game and came back from behind early doors. So the one thing he said in his interview is that he's going to keep this style of play, and I think that's really, really encouraging to hear because I actually think United aren't a million miles off. Like I say, I think it was more in the mould of a kind of Motherwell of last season, the way United played. Not quite as free-flowing as that, but very much not a million miles off it. And I think there's been a lot of criticism of Goodwin Ball and the way he decides to set a team up. But if he sets teams up like that, I'm pretty sure United are going to be in the top 6 at the end of the season. Just needs one of the forward players to just click and get a couple of goals. And then, I know the 4-0 defeat at Hearts, you give, again, it's kind of similar thing where you give 2 goals away in 10 minutes. One's a wonder strike, the boy Renard, who United tried to sign but were outbid by Hearts, and a very silly penalty by Benny Beanie by throwing a player to the ground, which you just can't do nowadays. Puts you 2-0 down after 20 minutes, and still at 2-0 in that game, United had more chances. Even at 4-0 in that game, United probably had more actual final third entries, if you will, if not proper shots. So it does show that I don't think United are a million miles away. I think United are probably just just needing that extra little click. Whether that is another signing, it doesn't sound like United are going to sign anyone else, but whether that's maybe just Euro or one of the other players getting up to speed, I actually, it's just such an odd feeling getting pumped out the easiest your best chance to win a trophy in a season is the League Cup, to get pumped out of that in a 4-0 drubbing, and then have more confidence off back. It's very odd. The one thing I will say, and I don't like calling out too many journalists and stuff, but the Herald's put out an article on Sunday saying it was Celtic were absolutely dominant. And I was like, I don't think that was a fair reflection. Celtic Celtic did look very good going forward, and they scored all 4 goals. They scored very well. But I think Celtic flattered to deceive in a long period of the game, and I fear if they play the way they played against United, if they play against Lask, they'll get found out.
I mean, it's Scottish football 101. When Celtic win, they're the best at everything ever of all time. That's just the way it always goes. But there's a question I'll put to you then as well, because I get the feeling this will obviously, we'll go into a derby preview, obviously on Callum's mark. But when you talk about Jim Goodwin saying that he's going to promise to keep this style going forward, is there not then a hint that means Rollins would continue to play? Do you guys not play quite a high line bombing fullbacks? Because then, if forgive me if I'm wrong, is the alternative to Rollins then not Savelch, who would be a bit more of a conservative choice?
I suppose, yeah, that is a fair point, but I wouldn't be shocked. I think the obvious thing to say with Rollins is he is still getting up to speed.
Yeah.
However, I don't think he's going to be quite good enough, but I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. What I would say is, he's replacing like Lucas Stevenson, who was excellent in that position, who was kind of a bit more further forward and then kind of back into the right back role. He's probably one of the best players we've had at Tannadice in terms of. I probably didn't get the right amount of credit, but he's such a hard working player, threw himself into everything, and that's what you kind of need to be if you're pushing up in the line that he's trying to play. And I think coming from a league in the A-League, which is clearly not as physical and not as hard working, I do worry that United do need another right back. Maybe that might be where if the 2+ million that comes in for Ferry, if some of that could be reinvested in a really solid right back, that would be great. I doubt it, because I think realistically, if that money's coming back in, it's going back to the owner, and I don't think Goodwin's going to see much of that. What happens when you're in £10 million debt to owner? But yeah, it is one of those things that I think I do. The one worry I do get is if United suddenly find themselves in 10th come October, is that then Goodwin might actually reset back to kind of tried and tested murder ball form, just to get the 1-0s and get kind of cracking again. I do. The one other bright spark on this is that there's been a number of young players that were used in the League Cup that have gone out on cooperation loans to Clyde. United have a link up with Clyde. I think there's rumours of another cooperation agreement being signed with a League One club. That could be. I think Gilligan played right back at the start of the season. He played left back. Can't remember. But there is a couple of young players who can be brought into that position. I know you may not want to necessarily throw 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds into playing fully in the Premiership, and it's not necessarily Goodwin's style to do so, but there is that option available. So yeah, I do go into this thing, like I do come out of getting knocked out of the cup competition with quite a lot of confidence, which is a very odd feeling. I don't know, Callum, what you thought, kind of watching it more as neutral. Saying neutral, probably watching the group chat as I'm getting more and more angry and depressed.
Yeah, I've not been, aside from some of the Celtic goals, I've not really seen much, but from what I have heard, it was really just a case of a typical game involving Celtic where it was just a case of Celtic weren't at their best, but just because of the quality they have and that clinicalness that they have, they were able to take their chances, whereas Dundee United weren't. That's all I really have to say about this game.
It's a fair reflection. I would say that, and I would say just one other thing. I do think, I can't remember who it was. It was the referee off the top of my head. Want to say it was Beaton. If I'm wrong, I apologise. I thought you had a really bad referee. A number of really poor free kick decisions. The worst one was Liam Scales. Gives away a free kick. Kicks the ball away. The ball comes back. He throws it away. which in my mind is a definite yellow card. Stops the quick free kick being taken, kicks the ball away and then throws it away, and he doesn't get a yellow card for it. And then 20 seconds later, Celtic go up and score, and it would have been. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily something that would have affected the game, but it's small things like that I just feel like it's an easy decision for a referee to make that he didn't make. And there was a few other ones. There was a weird handball decision that was against Rollins, which was less of a handball than both the handball decisions that Celtic didn't get given against them. There's a few things that I think that, and I don't like criticising referees, and I really don't like doing it. But I thought the referee had a really poor game. And it's one of those ones where you're just like, what's like? I understand when referees make decisions in the heat of the moment, but there's quite a few decisions that have just seemed really poor.
Did you catch the referee call that we had against Aberdeen for the first goal?
Oh, was that the? Sorry, I think I actually missed the first goal because I was flipping between that and the rest in the game.
So I believe is the rule not like if a player goes down, he's got to sort of signal that he needs physios for the physios to come on, and then if the physios come on, the player has to leave the pitch for 60 seconds.
I believe that it is the rule. Yeah. Did he come back on?
The player has to summon for the physio. So Joe Bevan went down. He didn't signal for the physios. The referee did instead. So the physios come onto the pitch on the referee's mark, and because they're on the pitch, he forces Bevan to go off the pitch, who never summoned for the physios. And then in that 60-second spell, when Dundee reaches 10 men, Aberdeen score. I don't think it makes a difference, but I'll also sitting there going like, how is that happening? Like, well, he's like, it's like the referee just went, taking it by the scruff and went, actually, no, I'm calling the shots here. You will be seen by a physio. I don't know, it was quite bizarre. It's definitely a new one that I hadn't seen before, but I think I've caught the United one as well when I caught the highlights back. And yeah, I think that there's several complaints United fans can have again in the face of that game. Particularly, there's another handball one too with Oxlade-Chamberlain.
I had a perfect view of that. That looked like a straight penalty, and I've watched it back. He's moved his arm towards it, and he's moved his arm, and it may hit around on the t-shirt line. It might hurt about that. But my understanding of the rule is if you're moving your arm towards the ball, that becomes less of a consideration because he's actually moving his arm towards the ball to play the ball with his arm. Some of the ball does strike below the t-shirt line. I think it's quite clear to see. So again, it's a very odd one that you just feel like you have a feeling that. And I don't want to go full conspiracy theorist tinfoil hat wearer, but you do have the feeling if that's at Celtic Park and your player does that, it's going to be a penalty to Celtic. Or if you do it at Ibrox and a player does that, it's going to be a penalty to Rangers, and you're not going to get that decision. And I just think that there's that kind of. It's fans of, and I don't. It's not necessarily a Celtic Rangers thing. It's just something that big clubs seem to get away with these decisions, in tight matches, and referees are not bold enough to make the decision there and then, because it looked to me very blatantly a penalty. In real time, it was like he's clearly moved his arm towards the ball and he didn't make a decision. And I suspect if he'd given the penalty in the field, VAR doesn't overturn it the other way.
Well, a similar instance happened at Easter Road as well. There was a penalty shout, the arms moved towards the ball, it actually does hit the hand, and amazingly, despite having VAR as well, the decision didn't really stick with the penalty. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. So it's just another season where they refuse to be consistent on how they rule the handball law to work.
I do have sympathy for referees on some of the handball, and especially there's some decisions where I can understand why they've got that, and it's very hard to keep it consistent over. There's 228 Premiership games. There's probably another 50 games that have VAR in Scotland in any given season. I do understand it's hard to keep that consistency. However, I do feel they do not help themselves with decisions like that. That's two decisions that I do feel that could have easily been overturned the other way, and I think there's probably more evidence for them to be overturned. But yeah, it doesn't excuse you lose 4 goals. You probably do deserve to go out. But I think the penalty decision, especially the handball for the goal and the penalty decision, those go the other way. United are at 1-1, probably and playing the better football going into half time, not 2-0 down, and it does make a massive difference come to start the second half. So yeah. Probably enough about United, because I know we'll get on to United a little bit later. Celtic were alright, they were very clinical. Arnie Engels is obviously left now. They play Lask on Wednesday night. I don't know how that's going to go. I think they could either easily win that or it could be an Arcaira Almaty type job. Like they seem. I still don't know how good they are. I still don't think they've had a proper test. And I know they've looked good in spells, and they have looked very good in spells, but I do kind of think they're still not quite there, and not everything's quite clicking, and not everything. Like, you say that, they've won 4-0, and they've won 5, and they've won 5-1 in the last 2 games, and they beat Dundee. So they've done what's expected of them, but I think, again, and they have spent money as well, which has been the main complaint of Celtic fans, but all that positivity could go out the window if they lose 2-0 on Wednesday night. So, yeah, they're still a team that I still don't know how to place. I still think they've got enough to win the league. That's very much true. I think, and I don't think anyone's going to complain on that take. But beyond that, I don't. You could see them having a bad time in Europe quite easily. But I could be wrong.
Yeah. So with that, we'll move on to the rest of the Sunday games. Of course, we already talked about Rangers against Mirren, where we're going to start off with Stenny against Motherwell, because that is the game we'll get through the quickest. Stenny definitely the biggest underdogs so far in this competition. They're taking on what some fans have been claiming is a reincarnation of Pep's Barcelona in the form of this current Motherwell side. This is probably the biggest mismatch in regards to gap between teams when in this round of competition, but the thing with Stenny is like they have been very well organised, and this showed in this game. Like 90 minutes went by, and there was like the full match highlights of a game that went to extra time was 3 minutes long, and like there was like a couple of half chances for both sides, but then extra time there was only 2 bits of highlights, and it was Stenny hitting the post early on, and then of course 113th minute. Stenny taking the lead as Ewan O'Reilly would control from a throw-in that went into the box, and with his second touch he would find the far bottom corner. And really good finish. And I believe Ewan O'Reilly's been at the club since League 2, which, is like to go from League 2 to the Championship with Stenny, and then to knock out a side that's been playing in Europe and been playing well in Europe so far in the League Cup. It's pretty good going for him. And yeah, easily the shock of the round, Stenny beating Motherwell. And yeah, it's like with Motherwell though, it was a case of they had a pretty rotated squad for this one, by the looks of things. I think there was something like 7 young players on the park at one point or whatever. It definitely rotated with an eye on Europe, and it's like completely fair to do that, to prioritise Europe, because it's like they're coming up against Freiburg. I believe Freiburg were in the... What was it they were in? Were they in the Europa League final or semi-finals or something like that last season?
I think it's the final of the Europa League. Did they not lose to Aston Villa in the final?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, yes. I think that was what it was, yeah. So, yeah, it's like, I want everyone well rested and whatnot for that, so completely understandable. But it's like, Stenny, you have to give them their plaudits for how they've started. They topped their group with penalty wins against Livingston and Partick Thistle, who, it's like being in the same division and being the 2 favourites for the title in that division. It's like it's pretty good going to start off with. And then, of course, they did get that draw against Raith Rovers on the opening day with the jammiest goal I've ever seen. But then, of course, they did miss a complete sitter 5 minutes later. So very easily could have won at Starks Park. And then they did beat Morton, but it's Morton.
I think everyone's going to beat Morton.
Yeah, but it's like the way it's like from what I've seen of Stenny so far, it's that they look like a top end League 1 team in the way of every game's a cup game, and they play in a way that's very well organised. Like they're well structured. They play like 5-4-1 or whatever. They're really it's like they're really compact and organised at the back. But see, going forward, they're very good on the counter from how they've looked so far. And again, it's like with that sort of League One-ness, that sort of physicality that they're not afraid to show. And, it's like it's working. They're playing to their strengths. And, it's like Bartley's doing a good job so far. Of course, it's like he's had plenty of criticism across his times as an actual manager, Queen and herself, and Livingston, but he's been rated as a coach. So maybe this is just the one that where it does click for him. And Stenny.
I did worry about them. I worried about them at the start of the season. I thought, Gary Naismith has done an amazing job there, and you could see what Gary Naismith's already brought to Ayr. Like he's brought the kind of similar kind of fighting spirit to Ayr United, as you saw in the cup tie on Friday night. But you kind of thought, well, Bartley, that's a bit of an odd appointment. Like he's been pretty poor at Queen of the South, like you say. He didn't seem to know really what was happening at Livingston. Obviously, he's been involved at Livingston for a long time. But, and he is someone who probably he probably goes in the Neil Lennon style of maybe getting a bit of an easier ride from certain aspects of the Scottish media than some other managers, maybe, potentially. But they absolutely deserved it. They were excellent. The only thing I would say is that the goal probably would have been disallowed had they had VAR because of did look like it touched the hand in the build-up, although who knows what the handball rule is in the build-up to a goal these days, but it was the goal scorer's hand. So, but yeah, I think obviously from Motherwell's point of view, you've got Freiburg is the biggest game in their modern history. Like that tie, you can get into the group stages of European competition. Would you take a 1-0 defeat with a kind of reserve side again, or a rested side against Stenhousemuir for maybe an extra 5% chance of managing to get past big opposition and a big European tie? Yeah, you're taking that. You're taking that every day of the week. So I don't think Motherwell fans are going to be too angry. I think it's one of these ones that you kind of like, yeah, you can accept going the cup shock if it gives you a chance against Freiburg, which I actually think they do have a chance against Freiburg. I actually do think they have a small chance because Freiburg have lost quite a few players from that side that got to the Europa League final. And German clubs have a knack of messing up playoff rounds in conference and Europa League history. The German league hasn't started yet. I don't think it starts till the weekend. So they've not played a competitive game yet. So Motherwell have obviously played several competitive games, having played two Premiership games, and 4 European games and a League Cup game. So this is like the perfect opportunity if you're going to get a big European shock. And they were absolutely brilliant against HJK Helsinki. Both legs, they were absolutely brilliant. So I do think I give Motherwell a chance on Thursday night. On both Thursdays. I could be chatting absolute nonsense and Freiburg won about 8-0.
Yeah, you are right about the Bundesliga. I just had a quick check there. They actually don't play until next Friday is their first game. Bayern Munich against Stuttgart. That's on Friday the 28th of August. So it's like this two-legged affair is before Freiburg start their league season, which is pretty interesting. But
will we all be supporting Motherwell that game then, or have we got guys in this crowd that couldn't stand the media praise that Motherwell got last season? Because I was actually like pro Motherwell in that regard. I felt a lot of people were quite overly harsh.
I do like Motherwell, and I do. I know it's a bit of a meme to say it's the style of play they play, but I think you're almost thinking that's a team that's been disassembled. They've lost the manager. It's very similar to Hearts actually in a lot of ways. It's a team that are weaker, should be weaker this season than not, and they've actually looked better under Alfred Johannesson than they did under Jan Bertolasko, which is a very, very hard thing to say. So far they've looked as good, if not, I think they've looked better. I think they've looked more pragmatic at times, which is where, like, you can imagine them when it went 1-1 in Helsinki, they might have gone on to actually lose that game last season just by trying to do the same thing, but they were a little bit more streetwise. I do think that eventually they won't be able to keep this going all season, but I think they have excellent opportunity to pull off a massive scalp in Europe, and probably I think if they get past Freiburg, I think it's probably the biggest Scottish achievement in Europe. I'd probably say I would be. And I know Rangers fans will probably laugh at me for saying this. I think it's on par with them beating Leipzig. I think it is on that level of them beating Leipzig and Dortmund in that run to the final.
Aberdeen not beat someone like insanely good as well? Frankfurt, yeah.
They were already out, and I think Frankfurt were already through, so it was a slightly. But they were very good in that whole. I think they were a team that got. I think they played in the last 4-team group stage of the Conference League, and they got an insanely hard draw. Seems to be Scottish clubs getting really hard draws in the Conference League, but like this is a great opportunity for them, and I don't want to diminish Stenny Smear's achievement by getting through it, and we could wax lyrical about them. But I mean, there's not a huge amount to talk about this game, to be brutally honest. I watched the highlights of it. I watched the extra time of it. Just a bit shit, really. It was just an old-fashioned cup tie where a lower league team wins. Kind of what it was. Just I kind of felt like there wasn't too much to talk about. But I really do think that Stenny. So I do really think Motherwell have this. I don't want to say once in a lifetime opportunity, because it's not quite that, but it's not far off for a club that isn't Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Aberdeen or Hibs. Like, if you're not one of those 5 clubs, you get very few opportunities in Europe as it is. I know Motherwell have played in Europe quite a lot over recent years, but to get into a playoff round in a tie with a team that isn't at full speed yet, it could be brilliant. It could be everything come together, especially when you're playing such a style that's adept for European football. I really want them to go through. I also want Scottish clubs to all do well, and I want all of them to win on Thursday night. But I actually think they've got a brilliant opportunity and to pull off one of the best ever nights for a Scottish club in Europe.
Yeah, no, I actually don't disagree. I think they've got just as good a chance as anyone, really. I don't think they'll go. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to call. I think they can get the home result, but away from home, it's probably too much of an ask. Even if they are a bit more pragmatic. I love saying ultimately for some reason. I don't know why. It seems to be a bit of a go-to phrase for me at the moment. But what I'm trying to get at is this was a team that were going toe-to-toe with Aston Villa in a European final not so long ago as well. And even though it's not the most glamorous tie they'll have, it's still an important game for them as well. Because what does it mean for them if they lose and get get knocked out? So yeah, it's maybe gonna be too much to ask for about getting through the tie, but I wouldn't disagree with you, Alex. I think they've got what it takes to get a result, and it says a lot because they've lost a lot of quality as well. They've lost a lot of quality over the summer, Motherwell, but they're not one that you look at and say that you feel for them like we have done with other teams in the podcast so far. And in regards to getting beat from Stenny, I remember looking at the lineup and I think what was it? Was it 5? Was it 5 youngsters they had in the first team? Was it 8 changes in total, but 5 of them were youngsters? So, if it's one of those that they obviously just got way too complacent, way too comfortable, and if they'd won, by the way, they're all like singing the praises about how great it is to give the young boys a run out, but it was obviously just 1 or 2 too much. It still went down to the wire. There was an extra time that the tie was decided. So just a bit of naivety, I think. And it's actually something I've seen Dundee do over the years as well, playing against a lower league team and playing a younger side. That's how we used to get knocked out of the Challenge Cup back in the First Division days quite a lot. It could have been us having that. I think the year Wraith Rovers went on to win at Callum at Easter Road. I think we were maybe meant to play Rangers in one of the early rounds, but we got beat against Stenny, funnily enough, on penalties because we played a team of kids. Like the game went extra time in penalties. But no, Motherwell, you talk about weird teams as well, Alex. They're just as weird as anyone else, because how the hell do you justify that to other folk that, they've just been knocked out in probably the biggest disparity comparison in the League Cup, but also have a very good chance of beating European finalists in a matter of days.
Maybe I'm just, it's the hopium of Scottish clubs in Europe and having 5 teams in a playoff round that all 5 will probably somehow converge to lose. Even though it's interesting because it's funny because I've been to, like, I'm sure we'll touch upon Hibs and Hearts in a minute and their European ties, but Motherwell come into it and I just feel like it's not necessarily the quality of side that you are, but it's how you play in Europe. There's a kind of, especially in these qualifying and playoff rounds, there's like, how many times have we seen Aberdeen always lose to a club like Maribor, who weren't actually that good, or I think they lost to Kairat Almaty, but then also beat like Rijeka, Groningen, who they shouldn't have beat, but then they've lost the teams that they should have. Like, it just there's this je ne sais quoi about European football that you manage to. Teams that don't seem to be, the teams find a way to be really good at it. Like teams that you wouldn't accept, like Jagiellon and Bialystok, probably a prime example, someone who are they're a decent Polish side, but they always seem to do really well in the Conference League. So that all teams from Poland in recent years, since the Conference League started, I think the Polish teams always overperforming it. But like Motherwell are just this. I think you kind of almost maybe it's being slightly disrespectful to Stenhousemuir, and I definitely don't want to be, but I do think Motherwell were kind of like, they can take that. Like, you can almost write this off to being their focus is on Thursday night. Thursday night is fine for a fan-owned club as well. We talked a little bit about St Mirren and their financial situation, but for a fan-owned club like Motherwell, who have probably one of the, I don't want to say worst, that's probably the wrong phrase, but they've got a stadium, very old stadium that is not probably, I don't say it's not suitable for modern football, but it's not really designed for what a modern football club needs. They're a club that wants a new training place, training complex as well. Motherwell, those things don't come cheap, and getting into a European group stage where you earn £5-6 million, which is basically your entire turnover for a year, that is massive for them as a football club. This is as big as them winning a Scottish Cup, or probably it's bigger than them winning the League Cup or the Scottish Cup. This is, in modern football, this is financially massive for a club of Motherwell stature. And I really do think they've got an excellent opportunity. And even still, right, the other side of this as well, getting Freiburg, a German club with a decent sized support, is massive financially for the club as well anyway, because of the way the TV rights are sold for European knockout games. It's the home club that decides it, so the home club is selling it to have it on Solid Sport. And that gives them a huge pay-per-view bump, which is what same as St Johnstone, I think, earned over £1 million from their game against Galatasaray a few years ago. Having a team from Germany or Turkey or Poland really does help you financially in qualifying. So yeah, this is it's a massive week for Motherwell Football Club, and I really do hope that I really do hope on Thursday night that they give the fans what they deserve, and they can do something that's great. I think maybe the positions of the ties, the order of the ties might not be to their fancy, but you don't know. You really don't know, and I think if they can go a 1-0 win through to Germany, who knows what can happen. And I do think they're a club that could really be if they get into the group stage of or league phase of the Conference League, they'll be a team that a lot of sides do not want to play.
Yeah, I was going to say is that the fact that they've got Freiburg at home first is probably what they'd want. You know, it's like if they get a win at home and then probably hold out for, at minimum, a draw, just like, let's say they win 2-0, it's like they can take a 1-0 loss and still go through. Like, this is absolutely massive for them. So yeah, just it is really the right decision, as annoying as it is to get knocked out by Stenhousemuir. But yeah, it is, as you say, it's like it could be game changing for them if they do get through against Freiburg.
And that's not meant with disrespect to Stenhousemuir. I mean, like, Stenhousemuir had to play excellently well to play really well to knock out even a slightly weakened Motherwell side, because at half time they made the changes and it was very similar to the team that played HJK Helsinki on Thursday night. So they are definitely not, they've not had to, like, it's not like they've played a B side. I think that which is kind of the, you may think that they did have to play a number, like most of their first team players were playing at the end of 90 minutes. So yeah, I think you do have to give credit to Stenhousemuir for being able to hold out against a very good team going forward and to keep a clean sheet and not really be troubled. That's excellent for Stenhousemuir, and I think maybe gives them the belief, and it gives them, and again, in our club, this financially massive for them getting into the next round of a cup competition with a potential. Apparently they're putting in temporary seating as well, so it's even more financially. It should be more income for the club for their game in the last 8. So it's another big day for Stenhousemuir Football Club, and it gives them a club who, if you would have said 5 years ago to a Stenhousemuir fan that you would be sitting in the Championship unbeaten after 2 games and in the last 8 of a National Cup competition, they would have laughed in your face. So I think it just goes to show that this is a sort of golden era for the Warriors as well.
It's like first time in this division since 1975, I want to say, off the top of my head. So yeah, really, definitely a golden era for Stenhousemuir. Right, so we'll move on now to Hibs against Partick Thistle, of course, Championship leaders, taking a trip through to Edinburgh, looking for their first win at Easter Road since 2004. Thank you, Kieran, for letting us know about how long it has been. Hibs, meanwhile, coming off of a 0-0 draw against Skendia in North Macedonia. With this one, Hibs would take the lead just 10 minutes in, as a ball across goal would find Owen Elding at the back post to tap home into an empty net. And for the first hour, this is pretty much all Hibs, just going off of the highlights. And then for the final half an hour, it was pretty much all Thistle. And they definitely started, like, there was definitely a turning point when, of like the first chance that Thistle do properly get in this game, they end up with a penalty being awarded as the ball has hit Joel Neal's hand. And as you alluded to earlier, Alex, somehow VAR overturned this. I'm not sure if it's something to do with like the guy, like, oh, the ball's gone straight at him, or like arms down by his side or whatever, but it's like there's like, I don't know how to describe like the gap, probably about maybe wrist to elbow gap between the hand and his like hip, but he just
it's an odd one. I think we talk about consistency, and it's one that I just, again, I'm slightly confused as to why it's getting involved, and yeah, it is odd. I didn't see. I've only seen the highlights of this game. This is the one. If you get the 2 o'clock games, the only one I kind of saw was that Stenhouse Motherwell game. So yeah, I can understand the frustration of Motherwell fans, but of Motherwell fans, of Thistle fans, but yeah, it's been I feel like. I don't know about you, but this was the game I had marked as a potential shock. This was, of all 8 games, this was the one where I was like, this is the most likely to be a shock.
Because they were involved in a cup game against lower league opposition.
potentially that may be the reason. But also they had quite a lot of travel from North Macedonia, and they have to prepare for a game against Ghent, who I actually saw Ghent play in the flesh against Union Saint-Gilloise a couple last season, or season before last, and they were absolutely awful. And yeah, I must admit, I actually, again, another one, maybe I'm on the hopium tonight, but actually I think Hibs have got a great chance in that one. Brilliant city though, I would say. Again, brilliant city for the high bees listening. If you do get to go, please do. It is insanely good. It's one of my favourite ever cities I've been to. But yeah, it's a really, I just think it's a bit of a missed opportunity from Thistle. And Thistle do, and you know, I know we all speak to Kieran quite a lot, and a few other Thistle fans like Manpreet, and you do get the sense that they get themselves into situations where they're in cup ties against Premiership opposition. Always seems to be against Rangers, quite often against Rangers as well, Ibrox, where they play really well and they actually probably deserve something at the game and just fall short. And it's the same in the playoff games, just in recent seasons. They always seem to just be that moment of quality short in the games that really, really do matter. And again, I kind of think it's the same again on Sunday, which is a real shame, because I think they're another club that deserves to have a bit of a moment in the sun, and the fans have been waiting for it for ages, and they're just not quite getting over the line. But Hibs did what they needed to do. They got through the tie, got a good chance in Europe, I would say, against a decent side, a very decent side, but a side that you can win against. You're not playing a big English side. They blow hot and cold. But yeah, I suppose for Thistle, it's one less distraction in a league, in a division where I think they're probably the favourites to win the division now in the Championship. I don't know. Obviously, Callum, you watch a lot more Championship football than I do, but from what I've seen, I've been very impressed with Thistle so far this season. I thought they were excellent in the game against Livingston the other night.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's like Thistle were probably favourites to win the league alongside with Livingston, but after the performance on Saturday, and of course they sort of had to dig deep against Morton to get a result, but they look like the best team in the Championship so far. Like they're the only team to have actually won both of their games so far, and you know, of course, they did make it through their group. Obviously, would have rather beaten Stenny, but as we said, Stenny have proven to be quite difficult this season to play against. So yeah, I feel like with this, that, as you say, like a real missed opportunity for Thistle, and especially with like the penalty call and some of the efforts they had in the last half hour, they can consider themselves unlucky. But as you say, it's like Hibs just have that extra bit of quality, and that's what got them over the line. But also the fact is, like, Hibs really should have been 2 up in the first half, or even at some points in the second half, where it's like in that first hour, it was, as I said, it was all Hibs. There was the 1-on-1 and then the resulting chip. There was a few other efforts where, yeah, it's like Hibs over the 90 deserve to win, but that last 30 minutes was really strong from Thistle, and it does bode well. But as you say, it's like just that little bit. It's like a glass ceiling for Partick Thistle, and it's like just
second in the championship, going out in the last 16 or quarterfinals of cup competitions.
Yeah, that's just what it is. It's like, yeah, just don't reach Hampden for anything. Just don't. It's like challenge for the title, but don't win it. And even then, they don't even win the Challenge Cup. Like the final last year was at their own stadium, and it wasn't. But yeah, it's just. I do think they will go on to win the league this season. Just with how they've played, they just look like by far away the best side in the division. Of course, Livingston do have the backing of the Ford family, so they'll probably pull out some amount of signings. I think they're up to 30 players now. I'd seen they signed another player today, and that's among 30 players in their squad. It's the most ridiculous thing I've seen. But yeah, Partick Thistle. Again, it's a case of, like, so many times we'd seen this last season where it's like proud of the performance, but just wasn't to be.
Will they transit themselves into this Premiership?
Yes,
I think so. It's so overdue as well, isn't it? And Mark Wilson's actually got them playing half decent stuff as well. I kind of thought, I don't know how much you caught them when Chris Doolan first became manager. But when he first came in, I actually thought they were the best footballing side in the Championship. I think they still finished third. And my thought was, well, they keep on that trend, they'll eventually get back up. But it was always the same old story. Almost there, not enough quality to get over the line. All the star players left. But this time, I think keeping Stanway is a bit of a statement, isn't it? Yeah. About showing that they mean business. And I think, when you get beat off Hibs, and to bring it back just briefly to the penalty shout, not so much, should it have been a penalty, should it not? If they play on that, if they're turning to their players and saying, here, by the way, like that was an injustice, on our day, we've shown that we're more than good enough to get the result there, maybe potentially even knock them out. Decisions like that can almost sometimes galvanise you. When you feel like you've been hard done by, it brings the squad together. I don't know if there is a word for it. It's escaping me right now. But there is times where certainly that there is that effect.
It galvanises the squad, doesn't it? Really, it's
yeah.
I agree, and I think there's that kind of siege mentality that does kind of fit in, and I think that like you say, they've made some really good additions. I think Seb Drudge is one who, and I know a few Queen's Park fans were saying that he does blow hot and cold. He's not the most consistent player in the world. I think you're going to get that any player you sign from the lower leagues of Scotland. Like, it's just by nature of it. If they were super consistent, a club bigger than Partick Thistle would be signing him. But he's still a very, very good addition, and I think he's a player that probably can cut his apply his trade in the Premiership. Even I think we were talking about St Mirren earlier. He's the type of player that St Mirren could probably need. So I think there's a lot of positive signs. I agree. I really like Mark Wilson as manager. I think he speaks very well. And now maybe this is just a bit of a living for everyone who works for Clyde Super Scoreboard. So because we've already had some about Martin Bartley as well. So no, I think he's a good manager. I think that the biggest fear of them not going up is losing Mark Wilson. To another club. I mean, Mark Wilson's someone that I would probably take at Tandis if Goodwin were to leave. I think he would fit United very well, being an ex-player for a short period of time as well. But yeah, there's a number of good things going in that direction in for Hill this season, and I really do think there's it does seem to be there's something different. They've made an excellent start, and they've got. When teams do make excellent starts to seasons in the Championship, they very rarely don't go on to win the league. Like they might have a little spell halfway through the season where somebody gets a bit close to them, but they always seem to pull away. It's happened with Falkirk, Hamilton United, it happened with Hamilton Kilmarnock, where teams have started well, maybe been caught by others, and then just gone on and found that extra gear late on. So I do think there's a. I have them definitely as favourites on the championship. I think from what I saw, they played very good football. They do play an attractive style. I just think that and I do hope for Thistle fans. I think Thistle will be a welcome addition back into the Premiership as well. And I think a lot of people would quite like to see them back. And it's a fan base that's probably been suffering for a lot longer than it needs to be.
It's a good point though when you say about like you would want to look at Mark Wilson if someone like Goodwin were to depart United. That's probably the danger they've got. Like Premiership managers don't have a long shelf life. So let's say things get worse for Kilmarnock. If Neil McCann's up the door, say he's the first one to be victim of the sack race, Mark Wilson's probably one of the first names you expect to see like linked to any Premiership opening. So I guess the threat they've got is just like trying to like keep a hold of him and hope that he's not enticed for trying to take that step up. Should there be a Premiership sacking? I say should there be. Of course, it's going to be. There's always Premiership sackings every couple of months. Keeping him for the duration, that will prove to be a real challenge. And it's not as if there's quite an easy makeshift replacement either. But I think the way my understanding of Partick Thistle is, they want to always go for the eternal approach, someone from within the club. That's how Wilson got the job in the first place. I think the higher youth coaches under the that's how they sell the youth coach jobs. They say if you come in and work with us now, we got a good look at you, and that way when there's an opening, you're automatically on the shortlist and we'll have a look at you for the senior men's job. So I mean, they obviously know that's quite maybe a clever way as well to have organic replacements. But again, as it stands, Wilson's the one doing the job, and if he was to leave, doesn't throw things out of balance. I don't know. It's I think that's a good point, and it's one to keep an eye on for them.
Yeah, I think Killie's probably the club that you would, if you're a Thistle fan, you'd be panicking about. Because I think that's the sort of perfect move in terms of a slightly bigger club in terms of support. And you could imagine Wilson there. Like I suppose I always find it quite hard to compete St Mirren, Killie, Motherwell, because they are all very similar supported clubs, but they all have different nuances to them. And Killie is probably a club that's got a slightly bigger support of the three of them. Maybe I'm being slightly unfair, but they do seem to have a bit more finance as well when they need to. So yeah, I think that would be a move that you can imagine that would be the one that I'd fear. I could maybe see. I couldn't see, say, Aberdeen going for Mark Wilson at the minute. I just couldn't see that happening. I couldn't see Hibs going for him just because I think that's too big a jump at the minute and he's too inexperienced as manager. But yeah, Killie is a job that I would be getting a little bit worried about if I were a Thistle fan. I think that's one that he could end up at. But I don't know. Maybe I could be completely wrong in my reading of that, and he maybe wants to commit to staying at Thistle for a few years, and then when a bigger job comes up, maybe, who knows, maybe a Celtic job one day, given that job seems to be up every 6 months at the minute, and they're still waiting for a manager who isn't 75 and competent and ends up being semi-competent. So yeah, I think lots of positivity to look at for Hull this season, and I don't think it's going to stop with a League Cup defeat to Hibs.
No, it's going to start with a playoff final defeat to Kilmarnock.
I haven't said that. Yeah. He'll sign the pre-contract to become the new Killie manager or something. Now I've said all this.
Alright, so we'll move on now to the final game of this League Cup round, and that is, of course, Hearts against Inverness. Hearts coming off of a draw against a rotated Benfica side, but a Benfica side nonetheless, while Inverness are looking to get their first goals since the group stages of this competition. They are yet to score in the Championship. Callie would take an early lead initially through Alfie Babbage just 3 minutes in, but VAR would deem him to be offside. Hearts, however, would take an actual lead as a free kick blocked by the wall would be met by the head of Christian Borchgrevnik. As his
that 5 times.
Loop over the keeper and into the net. Yeah, I'm not saying it more than once. Second half, however, would see a flurry of goals as Inverness would score twice in 2 minutes to take the lead. Ryan Duncan scoring the first in the 53rd minute after getting onto a ball over the top and just slotting it past the keeper. Second coming 2 minutes later, Alfie Babbage getting onto a ball through and rounding the keeper. Then 3 minutes later, in the 58th minute, Mato would equalise with a header for Hearts. And then there is the last 10 minutes of just pure chaos. You had a penalty from Calvin Miller just rifled into the top corner. You then had Josh McPake score a goal that ended up being disallowed for offside. James Wilson would get a fourth, heading home a rebound, and that would usually see the game out of sight. But then Braga would fire an effort into the top corner from the edge of the box first time in the 90th minute to make it 5-2. And then after an Inverness corner in the 94th minute, Hearts would go up the other end and Calvin Miller would slot it under the Inverness keeper to make it 6-2. So a comfortable result in the end for Hearts, who looked to be back to the sort of levels we were maybe expecting after definitely overachieving last season. But, you know, it's like without Rankin coming in and with all his accolades in Belgium and being manager of the year and whatnot, it seems to have clicked over there, especially considering, their last... Obviously, they had a draw with Benfica, but then they did beat Dundee United quite convincingly. It looks to be like they finally clicked. They look like an actual danger now.
Sorry, I'll let you go first, Alex.
I was just going to say, I don't think they looked that far off in any of their games so far. Now, I know they lost 4-0 to Sturm Graz, but in the first half they should have been 2 or 3-0 up in that game. They missed a number of gilt-edged chances in that, and then kind of 5 minutes of madness where the game got away from them. And then I think that the confidence definitely did affect them in the return leg in Tynecastle, and also you being 4-0 down, you're probably out. And then getting Benfica was like that's just rotten luck. Like any side outside the top 5 leagues in Europe, like Benfica beat Real Madrid 4-2 in the last year. They didn't lose in a single game in the Liga Portugal. So, like, to get them in Europa League qualifying is just unbelievably unfair. Like, you get them in Champions League, you can understand. Getting them in Europa League qualifying is ridiculously bad luck. So, you know...
Add on Benfica really quickly. Unbeaten, finished third.
They were unbeaten, though. They just drew a lot of games. Yeah, incredible, isn't it? How you're invincibles. Oh, yeah, you didn't even qualify for the Champions League. But it's they're a side that are clearly like even compared to Celtic, their finances dwarf Celtic's. So, you know, I think you kind of have to almost put that aside. And against Aberdeen, they lost 2-0. They did not, or 2-1. Sorry, they did not deserve to lose that game 2-1. They were the far the better side in that one as well. So I don't think they've been a million miles off clicking. And I think they scored a brilliant goal against United to start the game at Tynecastle, and then they just kind of kept on going and built from that. You kind of saw a little bit. They obviously drew a rotated Benfica side, like you say, but they were pretty good in that game by all accounts. And in this game where they, you know, it looked like they could have found themselves in a very tricky situation, they came back straight away and you know, really battered Inverness. An Inverness side who did not play badly by any account, from what I saw. I thought they played quite well. They absolutely battered them in the final 20 minutes, and I think really showed quality, and I think they really needed that because they're playing Rapid, and again another really hard tie to get. They've been given not the easiest run of games. Rapid, who are much better than they were when they played United last season, from what I've heard and what I've read of the rumblings I've read from the Austrian Bundesliga. They won 8-0 on Sunday in the opening game of the Sky Bet Bundesliga, or whatever it's called nowadays, and they are a side that have expectations, but it's a not a terrible opportunity for them. Like it's a team that if they do click, and I actually think in some ways them losing McInnes, I think in the long term is probably actually one of the best things that could have happened to the club, because now they can kind of reset and build in the kind of proper analytic style rather than have this Scottish manager who I think is a little bit sceptical to it, to be fair. I think it's fair to say, and I'm not saying McInnes didn't deserve all the accolades he got last season, but you could see there was the ways that he managed that at some point we're going to come at odds to the way that Bloom and the way that the kind of Hearts way of playing is developing. So yeah, I do think this season, whilst I don't think they're going to go have a title for the challenge for the title, I still think they are going to be in the top 3. I think depending on how bad Rangers are, they could even be knocking on the door of Rangers. This is, again, Thursday night, a massive opportunity for them as a football club. Going out, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I just think it would be bad for confidence. But I think if they get past Rapid, then I think that kind of insulates Walter Vraken for a wee while. And the fact they've won a big European tie. This is and I think this is a much needed confidence booster as well, beating Inverness and yes, not superbly convincing way, after 85 minutes or 83 minutes or whatever it was when Calvin Miller scored that penalty, but they were clearly the better side, and you kind of just knew they were going to get that winner. It just happened to be when that winner came in, they then opened the floodgates. So yeah, I think Hearts are going to be fine. I think in some ways this is, to use a kind of Moneyball quote, it opens up all kinds of opportunities for them. It's I actually wouldn't put past this. I actually still think this is Hearts' best chance to win a League Cup since the 1960s. They've got an excellent chance this season.
Yeah, they played some very good stuff against Benfica as well. I thought, quite brave on the ball, quite bold. Even though they're getting a bit of a hiding, it didn't really shrug them off from going for it that way. And developing those pockets of space. And as you say, against Sturm Graz, the chances to see it away, and to me those are positives. Again, as you say, it's rotten luck being drawn against Benfica. I mean, it's a shame that Mourinho went to Real Madrid, because the idea of seeing Jose Mourinho at Tynecastle would have been just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, there's very little to worry about them on that front. Europe, for any Scottish club, it's a hard gig to really hold your weight in. And like I say, it's like what we were saying, these defeats about our clubs, respectively. You take the positives from the defeats and you bring them into the league campaigns, or you bring them into the domestic campaigns. And that's a story for both sides as well, because Inverness, by the way, I mean, for 90 minutes have matched the team that were a game away from winning the league last season.
They were 10 seconds away from winning the league. They were literally if Motherwell don't concede that penalty and we can get into that, the Hearts win the league, because they weren't going to lose 4-0 at Celtic Park in the final game. So
that's what the Inverness staff will be saying to the players as well. You were toe-to-toe with that. You were level with that for 90 minutes, and then an extra time, as I said, when it comes to Premiership quality, that's just ultimately what shines through. There it is again. I've said ultimately. I don't know what's wrong with me. So I'm doing it subconsciously now. And they've recruited all right as well, Inverness too. I think Graham Shinnie is a massive coup. And they could potentially be dark horses for a playoff spot. Historically, it's always difficult to play them away from home up in the Highlands. But here they are going to Tynecastle. The limbs for the second goal, by the way, is absolute thing of beauty. If you've not already seen it, I'd recommend you'd watch it. Like they just absolutely erupt. But yeah, it's all the same hallmarks as well. You go there, you have to be disciplined, because Hearts have that kind of quality that they could blow you away. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if if I watched the full 90, Hearts had enough chances to see the game completely out of sight before then. And I just say a team that's 10 seconds away from winning the league. There were also was Braga the one that got the goal? Did you say that got them back in the lead? Was it Braga's strike?
Was it not Calvin Miller? I got it wrong.
Calvin Miller. Someone mentioned about Braga sticking at the top of the net. My first thought was, that's it's kind of funny how that's like a domestic game, because that's what we tend to say when Scottish teams are in Europe. It's like, bloody hell, they've been outdone by a guy that's worth £20 million or something. In this case, it's the striker that's rated at £10 million has notched it past poor little Inverness. Again, maybe still a bit struggling on a financial boat. It's just funny. That's what you'd expect to see, like when the Scottish clubs in Europe, and this is like a domestic tie. Inverness in Edinburgh sitting there saying that a £10 million striker is stuck past them. So no, they can both hold their heads up quite high for what it's worth. Inverness, quite a decent cup team over the years as well. And I think they seem to always draw with Hearts as well. I can remember them playing each other in the semi-final and potentially a quarter-final before that as well.
They always got each other in the group stage. I think they had each other in like 3 group stages in a row when it was regionalised. They always seem to play each other.
So again, it's they'll be sick of the sight of them, but at the very least, they'll leave the capital having that memory of the second equalising goal. That was awesome, and I'm happy for them to have that. But like I said, I would probably back you as well, because now that Rangers have to play Celtic, it knocks out one of the old firm. So then Hearts will be sitting there licking their lips saying, well, look, now it's from 2-1. They'll fancy themselves to beat either of them in a one-off game. And I don't think Aberdeen are particularly strong enough to win the cup this season either. They probably should beat Kilmarnock at Rugby Park, but a lot can change between now and then. But I would probably say it's between really Hearts. I don't think Hibs have got it in them. It's really between Hearts and whoever wins the Old Firm. I think that's probably likely the winners of your League Cup.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they are, like I say, Hearts, and there's also the needle in it. There's the needle of when they play Celtic or Rangers. There's the needle of McInnes and Shankland and Devlin at Rangers, and at Celtic there's the whole idea of the stolen Premiership, which I think Hearts fans I still think have taken very well, like
Yeah,
considering
no,
the way that the manner that they lost the division, and I still like put it this way, my head would be on Mars, and I think to be honest, if
There's
it hadn't
still
either,
one guy. There's still this one guy on the Scottish football subreddit, and he is just completely insane about it. And it's just a good laugh because it is just this one guy.
like I say, you wouldn't like. I think
I
they've
don't
taken
blame
it
him for
incredibly
being
well.
insane, but it's the fact that every other Hearts fan is just sort of mellowed out over it.
Joe, that'd be me though. That'd be me. I don't have Reddit, but if Dundee lost the league with seconds to go, I'd be on Reddit. I'd be raging every day. I don't think I'd ever know nothing but rage for the rest of my life.
I'd be off the grid.
Yeah, oh, no, my head would be on Mars. My head would be an absolute Mars. I think for one thing I would say on Callie Thistle is I'm just so happy for them as a club to see them see them back in the Championship. Which
Yeah.
is at least you can maybe argue that's probably is where they belong as a football club. Sustainably, they are a Championship level football club. The support. But there was for a long time it looked like Inverness. Obviously, Callum, fine well, put it better than me. Inverness Football Club did not. Inverness looked like a city that would not have a football club at a decent level. So to see them take decent numbers in Tynecastle, to get into the last 16 of a cup competition, and take the lead against a team that were playing in the Champions League, I'm very happy for them to support. I'm very happy for everyone involved in the club. A lot of good people who I think put it this way, it's hard being an Inverness fan. For many, many reasons, especially the fact you seem to be outnumbered in your own city by two clubs that are 150 miles away. So yeah, really, really happy for them, and I think their fans deserve that day in the sun, and I do think they are going to be sustainable in the Championship. If that's top four, there is potential for that. If they can get a really good run going, I think it's more likely to be like a season of 5th or 6th, which there's no shame in at all for Callie Thistle at the minute, where they are as a football club, and especially with Alan Savage trying to run it he's basically run out of money, I think it's fair to say. He's trying to run the club in a sustainable way going forward, which is what they definitely needed. So yeah, I think there's a lot of love for Callie Thistle, and I really do. I think a lot of people would like to see them are happy to see them back in a better place than where they were 12 months, 18 months ago.
I will say in regards to Callie Thistle, if there's anything they can take from this game, it's the fact that they scored goals. It's like the two goals. It's like the two games so far in the Championship have been 0-0 draws, and it's like at home to Dunfermline, they really should have. It's like both of their games they really should have won. That's the thing. They really should have won both their games so far. It's just that sort of lack of firepower that's been holding them back. And so I don't even think they scored that many in the League Cup group stage, I want to say. But yeah, it's like in the league they've just been missing that final bit of finish. Like Alfie Babbage, for example, has missed a couple of really good chances. Same with Ryan Duncan against Dunfermline. So to go 2-1 up at Tynecastle is really good for them, and hopefully they can take that and start putting it together in the league. Because, like you say, it's like a playoff push is possible. I think it's just a bit too far. I just don't think they have the quality, but it's like 6th is more than likely where they're going to finish.
That's a good season. As you
say, considering the fact it's like last season, whilst they didn't win the league in an impressive manner, that's also got the caveat of the 5-point deduction that they had following the 15-point deduction they had the season before. And even then, with the 15-point deduction, they finished outside of relegation playoff, which is in of itself really good for them. So yeah, it's just good to see that they're back to, as you were saying, Alex, where they arguably belong at a sustainable level. I mean, I know they did spend a good few years in the Premiership, but they just feel like a Championship stalwart club. Even
though they've had very few years in the second tier as a football club.
Yeah, that's the thing. They've had very few years, but it just feels right.
Yeah.
in the Championship.
And I really like Scott Kelleher. I really like the way he talks about the club and the way he in his story as a coach and manager. I've got a lot of time for him. So yeah, I like to see them. Like I said, I don't want to say necessarily doing well because they got beat 6-2, but I like the fact that they are back in a better place, and it's financially for the club as well. And I know it's not massive money, but 15,000 at £20 a head 40% of that gate's not an insubstantial amount of money, plus the 80,000 or so you get from making the knockouts these days of the League Cup. That's not a, that if you went out, they were expected to go out in the group stage, being a third seed with St Johnstone and Morton in the group, albeit Morton you can kind of, you're having two other the Premiership and two Championship teams in your group, you're not necessarily expecting to get out of that. It's for them to get out that group, for them to only have conceded one goal as well, that's mighty impressive, and I think they deserve a lot of credit. And actually, before they played Hearts, they were actually unbeaten in 11 in all comps. So that's that goes to show that they are, whilst they're not great going forward, they have been pretty solid at the back. One thing I would say, it's not boring being a Hearts fan though. At the minute, it must be really not boring. 18 months or so, but especially recently, seems to be very much feast or famine. But I think they might be back to feasting very very shortly. But yeah, probably enough about all these Diddy League Cup ties. Let's get on to the proper stuff.
Yes, of course, we do have the quarter-final draw that has, of course, been made following the Rangers St Mirren game, and there's some tasty fixtures to say the least. Of course, speaking of Hearts, they play on Friday, September the 11th. They are away to Stenny, as we alluded to. There's probably going to be like some sort of temporary seating or whatever to help with capacity for that game. And then you've got your Saturday fixtures of Ross County at home to Hibs, which, as we said before, if there's any team that's going to lose at Dingwall, it's probably going to be Hibs. Kilmarnock against Aberdeen is the other one, and I feel like that's one that could possibly go either way. Like, as you say, Aberdeen are a bit of a weird club. Kilmarnock, they're a bit of a weird club as well right now. And then probably the one that is of most interest is the Sunday lunchtime kickoff, Rangers hosting Celtic. I can't. Oh my god, see. Like Police Scotland and whatnot, seeing that draw and just seeing that come out at Ibrox, it's just like, oh fuck, not again. You're gonna have to lock up Broxy.
Someone was moaning on Twitter that it was a 12 o'clock kickoff, and I was like, did you not see the last time it was a 3:30 kickoff? Did you see why maybe Police Scotland might have demanded that to be a 12 o'clock kickoff? I think the fact that because it's a League Cup, they only have to give 5%, which saves us the whole really annoying
free approval or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think the European allocation is probably the more sensible option anyway, just for safety reasons. I think 5% is more than enough in Celtic Park or Ibrox. It's 2,500-3,000 tickets. So yeah, it's one of those ones that I think. I don't think there'll be anywhere near as trouble. I think it was the fact that it was just that having the whole end is quite hard to police. Like operationally, having 8,000 away fans in a 50,000 seater stadium's not great. Having 2,500 makes it a lot easier to cover. So yeah, I think that's obviously quite a big test for Derek McInnes. I think we did speak earlier about this could maybe be a turning point for him. If they do win that, then he is the Rangers fans' man. I think winning over him goes a long way to doing that, and especially denying Celtic another treble does go a long way to that. Although I do think I think it's interesting. I think it's really interesting. It's 4 games that I'm looking forward to watching. All 4 games are on the telly, which is great. I could see Scottish football's now finally getting into the right broadcasting mindset. So yeah. Interesting ties. Killie Aberdeen, I think, is a very interesting one in the fact that I just don't know how that's going. Like I couldn't make a prediction on the scoreline. You might as well. You could throw out any score. It could be 0-0, worst game you've ever seen, or it could be 5-4. It could be an absolute mental game, that one.
I hope Killie win because I'm better.
Any chance to deny Aberdeen success, I'm all for. So